Hello, hello, hello. What's happening, everyone? Welcome, welcome. We are live in the Rinaldi studio. So this is where I struggle a little bit. Are we actually on? Hello, hello, Ross. Can you see me? You see and hear me? That was Moscow today. So I thought when we go live on this thing, it goes live into this. You're live? Okay, thank you, John. So StreamYard doesn't tell you that. This kills me. Because like I don't know. Because you can't subscribe to your own stream. Like, it's just the dumbest thing ever. Still learning. Just making sure. Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, sweet. Music. Do we hear it? I hear it. Do you hear it? Everything okay? Thanks, brother. Ross says, Al, what's up, bud? John Barnacle, thank you, bud. Clinton, hello, yo, yo. Tomas, hello, my friend. Martin from the UK. How is the UK doing? Dude, the emails we get from the UK lately? Cool, thank you. Okay, so the music problem last time. I had the Spotify app on the computer open and the tab open. So I was hearing double thing, so I turned one off, which was your guys, but I could still hear the music the whole time, the first 20 minutes. That's why I was so confused. Right on. Eric, you made it. Nice, bud. Coming through, sweet. Okay. Is the music too loud? I don't know. You tell me. It is cloudy in Portland today. We are, what's 7 degrees? My Celsius conversion sucks, but we're probably around 20. So, it's 20 degrees Celsius. Pennsylvania. I am a Steeler fan, Caitlin. Of course, you're probably an Eagle fan. That just screwed me up. Yeah, we'll get into football over time. That's my sport. For all you international kids out there, American football is my main sport besides Formula One. Thank you, Martin. He says good quality picture. Wow. I don't know if you can see the condensation on my mug. Probably can't. It's like dripping wet. Really weird weather, but at least it's cool. So it's no longer. We broke 3 records in a row. If you guys didn't hear that news, I think Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Vancouver, Washington. We all broke all the heat records. So in my 50 years on this planet, is now the hottest weekend in history in Pacific Northwest, or recorded history. I'm sure it was hotter at some point in time. The formation of said universe. Yeah, stream number 3, episode number 3. John Volker, what's up, bud? Hello from Tennessee. The Vols. Sweet, sweet. Thank you, Ross. Ross says all the settings are perfect. Yeah, just trying to fine tune everything, you know? Got a little something on the shelf over there, guys. We'll get into that later. We'll do pigment. We'll do pigments at the end, just because they're the dirtiest. So I'm gonna make a mess with the pigments. So we'll do some oils first, and then. So I think I made in the notes. I know we were talking last time about. Here, let me switch this over real quick. Put my mug over there. There we go. Another Moscow. What's up, Val? My Russians. Rick, how you doing? You survived. It's good to hear. Rick, tell me where you're at. What? You're northwest, right? Northeast. Okay, north. Oh, jeez, you're probably 5 minutes from me. I'll have to bring Rick in one time. We'll have to do like a live stream with friends one time. There's a lot of stuff I do want to do. I will say that I do want to do like a podcast, live cast. That would be cool to do interviews with other fellas, ladies too. Are welcome. You know, if they're talented. I do know the talent here in Portland, but we're not talking that kind of talent. Talking the other kind of talent. Sorry. Sidebar. Ontario, Canada. Okay, that's where you're from. I know I follow you on IG, and I've got a lot of friends, and obviously in the Toronto area. Been there a few times. The Hornet Hobby thing. Champion scale model, like it. Thank you. He likes the regular vids. Let's see here. Enigma. Elia from Switzerland. Cheers, man. It's good to see where everybody's from. Christian from Germany. Good to see you. Guten Nacht. Is that right? My German sucks. For a dude who had a girlfriend that was German for 15 years. No, we were boyfriend-girlfriend for 15 years. She's been German her whole life. You can't take her out of not being German. And all my German friends will know this. When someone's German, like you know they're German, we keep in contact. We're actually good friends again. She works, if you don't know who my girlfriend is and you don't know the automotive design backstory of Rinaldi Studio Press, if you have driven a 2010, 2009 BMW Z4 for the US guys, she did the interior. She was one of the top BMW interior designers, my girlfriend Nadia, who's German. But my German, we had the dogs were trained in German. We don't have the dogs anymore, but yeah, funny stories there. Lots of funny stories there. But if you've driven in a Z4, I think it's the first female all-production design car. The exterior was Ilyana, and Nadia did the inside. And then if you've driven in a Model S, even though they'll never give her credit, here's a little fun fact, because Elon is kind of a dick sometimes. He pulled her name off the credit list of designers because she switched to Fisker. So the Model S interior is my ex's, Nadia's. So that big screen and all that stuff, that was all her. Hide Jong, how do I say your name? Is it Hyde? We'd probably say, I don't know. Tell me how you say your name, brother. But greetings from Netherlands, the Dutch. Boy, you Max fans are crazy. Can't wait till that race. F1 race in the Netherlands coming up this year. Rick, you don't dance. Just saying, I don't dance either, my friend. You and I both, old white guys, we don't dance. You don't want to see us. You don't want to see us dance. All right, just getting all the greetings out of the way. Thank you guys. Costa Rica, Alvaro. Oh, there's a place I gotta go. Being Southern California boy, Costa Rica was always on that list. I got as far as like middle Mexico in Baja, but never got down to Costa Rica. Baja California, there's some stories there, my friends. Early college days, getting in trouble. Lucky I didn't end up in jail. Oh, it goes back a ways. All right, yeah, as long as the paintbrushes dance, we're good. Okay. All right, let's get rolling. Everybody's here. So yeah, so today, I'm kind of recapping the last couple streams, heavy on the oils in this little Jimmy Jam turret here. This is the Paper Panzer E50, E75. I did find all the extra parts for it. So this little guy will build out, I think in a future stream. I've got the chassis in the closet. So just to tell you guys again, I moved into this unit in April. So this little office is still kind of in the works. My closet's mostly storage, but I did find a bunch of pre-built models that I'd had kind of prepped for the books. And I'm probably going to split some of them off into stream and or video content for you guys. So I think that'd be kind of cool. Christopher, good long time, man. Christopher, our names have bounced around on missing links, if this is the same one, pretty sure. From Östersund. Did I say that right? I probably don't. My pronunciation is terrible. But yeah, Sweden. Yeah, it's so many memories, guys. This is kind of cool. I will say this is really kind of cool. I get a little nostalgic because a lot of names that come up through here, both customers, but a lot of us go back to the missing links days. Good times right there. But anyway, I moved in here. I have some projects. I'm gonna break them off into digital video content for you guys. Let's see if this little guy here. Oh yeah, you demo boys remember this one. This is still how I left it at the last. Don't quote me. I probably took this to Mosen 2017, maybe. I can't remember anymore. The brain's going. It has been beat up. All the suspension broke in the flights back and forth, and I've never fixed them. But here, let's pull in the camera view. Whoops. That's right. Old DML turrets with the. See, this is why to me it kicks ass, because Dragon never did that. I hate that. Anyway, I know you could fix it, but I never did. Old Pigment work. That, my friends, was Hornet Hobbies work. That's demo work at Hornet Hobbies. And you can see this stuff still sticks pretty well. But we'll do that later today. Behind me on the shelf there, this guy. That's the Stuke 4 from Tank Art 4 and from the Ken 4 Stuke book. That's where I first did it. And then he let me put it in the chapter for this, so Tony forgot there. Thank you, brother. Yeah, Martin, we'll get into book news here in a second. Let me just catch up with what we're doing today, because I know there's some new faces. Cameron, hello, how are you? Yeah, Christopher, pretty close. Yeah, ML, yeah, I remember you, man. I remember the names. You know, Barnaco too. Yeah, I still talk to John Tamkin. John Barnaco's talking about, did you come by the store? The actual LA, like I'm pointing like it's over here. Atwater Village? La Cañada? No, not La Cañada. Atwater Village. Yeah, it was Atwater Village in Los Angeles. That goes back to 2005 and 6. Yeah, it's 15 years. Yeah, but I still talk to John at Mission Models. We're talking Mission Models main, John Tamkin, but we're talking the old store, the armor store, the first like real U.S. dedicated hobby armor store. Phone orders. Okay, yeah, we probably talked on the phone then because I answered the phone for quite a while. About a year I was there. So when I graduated college, I started building models again. That's how I kind of got back into this. I was doing my interviews, and John actually gave me like a part-time job behind the counter while I kind of did my job interviews for industrial design, car design, that kind of stuff. That's how that really all started. I called him one day for some photo etch or something. I think Frill model track. He imported Frill model tracks for like the first dude. He was buying them out of Pacificos Models, which was near San Luis Obispo in California. If you all remember Ken Lawrence and Pack Models, he was the importer of Frill and Life Color. And we'll do some Life Color stuff. I found the rust set the other day, which is really cool. There's so much to do. Anyway, all right, but yeah, Daniel, what's up? What's up, Holmes Ice? Yes, the names, man, you guys are awesome. So many flashbacks, and thank you for using your names. If you use a name online, an avatar, or whatever, let me know who you are if I don't see your name up here. I'm one of those I'd always like to use my real name. I'm not shy, obviously. Okay, so let me do this. So the book stuff, I talked to the printer. What's today? So we were emailing over the weekend, so I try to get those emails so that Europe gets them Monday. We're gonna do the first 3 book file transfers next week, and then the other 2 book file transfers about 2 weeks into July. So we think shipping will probably happen towards the end of July and into August. Now, when I say shipping, to clarify, because this always confuses me and everybody else. When I say shipping, the printer's shipping to us, and then when I'll make all those posts about, hey, we've got our books, whatever, and then we're shipping to you guys. You probably have to tack on a couple of weeks for most of you, especially like Australia, New Zealand, all the Asia countries, Thailand, Indonesia. Europe should be fastest because we're printers in Europe. So that jump from the printer to the warehouse to you guys is usually gonna be the shortest now. We're probably gonna do one bulk shipment to the US. And if you haven't heard, and this might be a real thing for me to deal with, and I've been kind of avoiding that conversation with myself, the prices of the sea freight are going nuts. And even with air freight and sea freight prices on the bulk container, we have a pallet of books coming to the U.S. to supply everybody here, plus fill our shops down in LA, our inventory shop, warehouse that's down in Los Angeles. So that all takes a little bit of time, and there's gonna be some juggling, and I'm probably gonna fumble. We fumbled last year with Tank R3 pretty hard, if you guys remember that fiasco. It should go smoother. We know what we're doing as terms of back and forth, but it's gonna be a cost issue for me, so we'll see how this goes. But anyway, I'm guessing most of you will get your books around early August, mid-August for the first grouping. Second grouping is probably gonna be late September and October, realistically. And that's just the speed of what the printer's kind of going at right now. They've been back for about a month and a half, she said. So, and my poor girl, Susanna, the girl that works over there at the printer, my customer rep who speaks pretty good English, she actually got COVID and she was down for almost 3 months. So that was no fun, but yeah. So we're getting caught up on the books, and we had a comment on Instagram that let me just address real quick. If you have any problems with the orders, questions, whatever you got on your purchase part, email me or go to the website and use the contact form. I won't social media back and forth. I tried that years ago. It's a mess. I'm a one-man show, and I need to have the emails and the orders on the computer. So that's why I do it. I'm not trying to be an asshole. It's social media for me to handle book orders, purchases, business part. It doesn't work. I don't use Messenger anymore, all that kind of stuff. Dudes were all over the place. But anyway, that's that. Clears that up, hopefully. But yeah, email, and you guys know me. I respond all the time. No big deal. You're not, if you're, you know, half a day ahead. Just give me, you know, half a day to catch up on the emails and stuff. I usually reply in my morning, so it's 12:15 now. So, but anywho, so this palette started to dry out a little bit. If you remember, we did this little panel up here. Let's do a little zoomy zoom. Get in here. So we did this little. So you can see here. What day was that? 3-4 days ago. And I've got the blind open, so you're seeing some glare. But that's pretty nice, not too bad. And also this guy's been handled quite a bit. My fingerprints of it, so it's a little bit glossier than you normally see it. I like to work off a matte. Maybe contentious for some of you guys, I don't really know. Surface tooth. Matte's gonna provide typically a little bit better. Now when I say matte, it's not rough to the touch, it's just dull. And we'll get into airbrushing in a future video, probably next week. I was hoping to get to it this week, but it's already Wednesday. So maybe if I do a stream on Sunday, we might do some airbrushing. I need to do some practice and testing with the temperature and the weather. I haven't really caught up in this studio yet because of the heat, but we'll see how that goes. Live streaming airbrushing is gonna be a little bit different for me, I believe. Just because we're the camera location and stuff like that. But today, as I keep interrupting myself as always, we're going to continue over here and show you guys how that works. So let me get the oils a little bit wetter here. I got to cut some of these guys out. So when they dry like this and it's taped down, let's see if I can move that over a little bit. So I'm going to come in here and open some of these up because the oil inside these little mounds of are still good. So we're just slicing it up, and I'll put a little thinner on this. And that'll kind of wet them back up. So when you get a palette that's a couple days old like this, just kind of come in, and this is just an old knife. I don't really care what's. Kind of poke those little oily things, because the oil inside is still juicy. It'll go for a while. So this is kind of palette prep 101. You have to do this sometimes. I probably should have made a new palette for today, but I wanted to work with this to show you guys what happens over in a palette that's a couple days old. That's the beauty of doing all these videos. I can kind of do some time lapse over the period of, you know, as we kind of get into this stuff. That's kind of a cool little feature. Okay, so Christian says they have a dedicated YouTube account for the hobby. Yeah, no big deal. I prefer everybody's first names usually, but I know some of you, like Wolfram, you're social media'd out, so I just need to kind of know who's who. I kind of know most of you, but anybody new, please say hello and stuff. But yeah, CJ Scale Plane. So Christian Jacobs does some really nice aircraft work on Instagram under his, in the chat there. So definitely check him out. And we'll do some AirC pretty soon. Kind of putting that off a little bit because it's gonna be a shift of gears for me. And I want to kind of get this base foundation from military and Gunpla going a little bit, and then we'll shift into some aircraft stuff. And I do promise some rail stock. It is coming. My boy's out there with the train. It is coming. I owe Jason Reese thing maybe later today. Doubt it though. But anyway, let's get over here. Okay. So that all said, oops. So I like to use a little. Let's get this on camera here. A little eyedropper. Somewhere along, that's how hot it got. Some of this stuff melted and bent, but we're just gonna put some fresh thinner. And what this does is just kind of reactivates some of these oils. I just kind of let it soak in for a second. Because when this dry, they're very workable once we get going. But you do need to kind of give them a little bit of extra bump. It's like the old days when you have a carburetor and you shoot a little lighter fluid or whatever into the carb intake to get that car to go. That's the old trick. Was it lighter fluid? What do you guys remember that? I've had carbureted cars before too. That's fun. Okay. So let's see here. Now it looks pretty bad right now. Get my keyboard out of the way a little bit. This might be a little bit. Yeah, so some of these take a little minute to get kind of, yeah, as long as the color gets onto the brush. Sometimes you have to sacrifice one of your brushes to get this going a little bit. Yeah, back to that UK conversation. By the way, if you guys aren't hearing this, the difference between EU and Brexit and all this stuff, there's a lot of regulations with VAT, the taxes. We'll probably have to adjust some prices for EU customers a little bit, just for kind of short term until we kind of see how this plays out. I don't know if you guys can hear the sirens today. I've got the windows closed up tight. It's a loud city sometimes. Yeah, so these are juicing back up really nice. So this is a little bit just kind of like knocking that top of the. I'm going to do that. We'll put green on the orange. This kind of knocks that top dried top part off. It looks a little messy. Don't sweat that part, because remember, everything gets unloaded on the paper towel. That's always the crucial element. Okay. Ooh, that's a nice color. You know, let's do that. I believe that's basic. Or so in the last stream, if you guys go back and, you know, if you're using it as reference or whatever, there is a color chart. And I think I've got it in the description down below. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. Yeah, and please hit the like. And if you do the subscribe and share, you hate the promo, but I have to. It really helps apparently. The algorithms are huge with YouTube, growth, all that good stuff. So yeah. Yeah, Eric Daglish, Hysterex Agent is one of our main, David Sangster's one of our longest running accounts at Hysterex. His father helped kind of connect the dots for us about 10 years ago. And so yeah, Hysterex usually gets all their stuff on time and stuff for my UK friends. Yeah, and if the Brexit VAT stuff, EU, UK, the whole conversation, if just try to, we have a dealer link on the website. You can go that way too, go direct. But either way, we're working on it. We have all the information. We've been kind of kept in the loop about stuff. So yeah, but it's changing. Stuff's happening. It's not as smooth as they all thought. Which most of us probably are like, yeah, we do that. Oh well, it's all good. Okay, let me get the blue out of there. Okay, so the palette's kind of ready to go. This is how you kind of it's obviously that looks really shitty on this camera. That looks really bad. Don't sweat that, of course. Everything will start absorbing out and evaporating out a little bit. You just want the color application ready to go. So so we've started here and we're gonna go this way. Let's add some dust down first. Is the music too loud for you guys, by the way? I do talk a little bit loud anyway when I get going. Okay. And yeah, ask any kind of questions. You know, I've got things repositioned a little bit so it's a little bit easier for me to read while I work. Okay, so I'm setting up kind of a wet application. And what I'll do is I'll do this little section here in about 10-15 minutes. And then we'll pop open. I got Tank R4 right next, and I've got SM1 and SM3 with me too. And I've got some page highlights, so we'll flip some open and we'll say, hey, this is what we're doing. And I'll show you how to do that. So that'd be kind of cool. We're in this for the long haul. Okay, I'm just prepping the dust thing, a little bit of wet. Get that on camera so you can see. That's a little bit on the wetter side. See how juicy those bristles look? It's a little too wet, so I'm just kind of unloading them a little bit. Pull it back out. So the sheen's knocked down just a hair. What I'm gonna do, okay, just make sure everybody can see. So you can see those first, see that, look at that turret right there. You see that it's kind of juice like that? A little bit of a wetness. I'm kind of dabbing this around. And you can kind of see right there, you see how the color's kind of diffusing out inside the thinner? This is kind of the initial wet to get the dust down. And what I want is, because this is this is the hardest surface to work on. Base horizontal flat surface, top of the turret. And I'm gonna want kind of a soft, dusty, just kind of a base, whatever. And then of course, as soon as I touch the music, it turns off, right? Yeah, it stops playing. Yeah, I'm having this problem. Don't understand. All right. I don't know why it kicks off. I think, because I'm Ethernet in. This is all hardlined, not on Wi-Fi. But anyway, you can see it's already kind of evaporating on its own. And it's not gonna look good right now. Don't worry about how visually it looks. We're just kind of putting dust down. If I wanted to, I can even come in and, so this little switch, we've shown this before. It's kind of an older rake brush, kind of old bristles. And if you guys don't have your 1080p setting it's going to be on your end as you're watching the video. There's a little gear symbol at the bottom edge of the video. If you don't know about that, click that little gear and it'll open up a window of like 360, 440, 720. We should be at 1080p if you guys can handle it, which will give you a nice sharp photo or image quality. So I used this brush here was dry. It's because there's already enough thinner on that surface. I don't need to be adding any more thinner to this. In fact, if you get you see how soft that is? So there's no hard tide mark. I keep forgetting that word. And that's what you guys fight a lot. I know that's a huge problem in enamel side because it even happens a little bit sharper. The odorless thinner, the way they work, they're a more refined quality. They don't go to tide mark edge as fast. Gives you a little bit of a window, and that's another reason I like odorless thinners for this process. But see, if you look at the turret, it's just kind of wet. It's not really getting a hard edge that I have to worry about yet. And I'll hair dry this in a sec. So I'm just kind of diffusing this a little more, and it's just a real gentle stipple, and it's just that tapping motion. Kind of play that out. Now we'll hit it with the hair dryer. Just real quick. We'll be using the hair dryer a lot with pigments, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I did kind of a 75% dry, and that's just to get a little diffused dust layer down. Try to get a really good camera angle for you guys. You can see, yeah. So just putting a little bit of a diffused layer of dust right there. But see, to my conversation about working in sections, and it's still a little bit wet, which is fine. I don't need it fully dry yet. But if we look at this little panel right here, this corner, this area of the dust right there, what I really want to see is, okay, that's how opaque the dust was going. So I don't want to get super crazy down here, and that gives me that guide. And that's what I'm really trying to talk about when you're working on the sections, is that correlation. Now I'm talking to you about this, but when I'm in the zone, this is all automatic. This is, you see it, boom, flows, done. It's, millisecond of your brain figuring it all out. But I want you guys to focus on that, because that's how you control yourself as you move around the subject, the model, the kit, whatever you're doing. Because this is effective for, we'll get into Gunpla, on the hull of a tank, and some of that stuff we get into aircraft. It's all the same. Nothing, the principles don't change. Just tap this out a little bit more. And it's got a nice little gritty, little kind of dusty element to it. Now I can keep going and add to it, because it's kind of locked in a little bit. So let's see if I want to get a little bit of a dust pin wash. This is why I love doing all this stuff. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go around this little raised nubby bolt thing. I'm getting better at painting on camera, so you see and I see the same basic thing. So I'm kind of just drawing it around it a little bit. And the brush here, see how it's moist, but it's not that glossy sheen anymore. And there's just enough oil on that tip right there, on that tip of that brush, for me to draw like that. So if I turn it, you're getting a little bit of glare sometimes. I'll try to keep doing this for you guys. You can see that. But yeah, so that's kind of one of them. Yeah, Eric, he struggles with empty space. And this is why I'm using this, because if I show you a harder part like this, and I've got the Hetzer and the T34, they have some blank spaces. Trust me, it's the difficult part. But you don't have to overthink it too much, because there's not a lot you're going to do for it anyway. You don't need a ton of stuff if you've got a lot of open space. Add a little bit of interest to it, like what we did over here. Like at this little thing here coming into this area there, and then we can join it with that. And that's going to be enough. Trust me, that's going to be enough for you guys to really see what's going on with this stuff. I also raised the camera so the brushes don't hit the camera as much. That was pretty embarrassing last time. So hopefully I don't have as much camera shake. So I'm just kind of blending this out in kind of a spiral general pattern, not being super concerned. But again, see how wet that is? That's about as wet as you're ever gonna want something. It's not runny, it's not bleeding anywhere, there's no tide marks there, it's like a sheen. And then you can come in and just stipple that out, diffuse that a little bit more. And we can come in and hit this with the hairdryer. Getting pretty dexterous with this setup, okay. So like I said before, we always have one clean blending brush. Then we have some of our other little blending brushes. We keep these clean. We don't put any oils on them or anything like that. And we have another one over here. We have a wider flat rate too. Yeah. So these would be kind of your blending trilogy. I don't know what you call it. 3 of them. There's 3 of them. The triangle of blending brushes, and then I've got the rest for color. And we're just using some dust right now. I'm not worried about much else. So I don't need the rake in here. And if you guys like capillary action and you like the stuff to bleed out and run around, that's your prerogative. All you do is you just add a little more thinner. So what I was talking about in the last video was about you controlling the volume with the thinner. It's the same conversation. I can make all this stuff do whatever I want it to do just by how much thinner I'm adding into it. And that's why oils are so powerful. If you guys haven't figured that out. And I will repeat myself quite a bit. So if it's not working for you, it's always going to be about what's on the brush. Let me load this brush back up. So anytime something's not working as you hope, you just reset the brush. You know, put a little thinner on it, get a little oil on it, put on the paper towel, clean it up. Trying to get the flow here. Off of there. There it goes. That's what I was talking about. Okay, so that's getting way. See how so there. Now that's going to be a little bit hard to clean up. So by going a little bit juicier, you tend to start fighting more problems, and it's a subtle difference between what was before to what this is. It's just a hair too wet, and it doesn't take much, but you kind of want to see that. Dry this off pretty quick. That will leave tide marks. That will leave tide marks for sure. So that means there's too much thinner on the brush. And that's see, there it is. So you see this little bolt right there? Yeah, this guy right here. There it is. You can see that. You can see that kind of glare out the reflection. Yeah. So you're getting a little bit of tide mark there, and that's what using less thinner does, is it avoids all that problem. Let's just tap on this, stipple this out. It's all fixable. It's no big deal. Yeah, there we go. Still a little wet. I put a lot of thinner there. Okay. We're gonna put a glare off that. Yeah, see, I don't even like that. So I try to troubleshoot with you guys. So now I'm just kind of working this back out a little bit. That oil spot there too. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just taking this this brush here, and there's no thinner on it. Just kind of working things back out a little bit. Kind of reducing the special effect that we got. And this will kind of reset that little area a little bit. So it wasn't ideal, which is okay because it's fine for you guys to see me make mistakes too. So you don't panic, you know, because we don't, that's not gonna do anybody any good. Yeah, the sun glares a little bit. I'll shut the blind down here in a minute. Yeah, you can see how nice stippling does that. So there, that's actually a lot better now. So there's a little bit more natural. Got the flow of dust coming off here. I'll keep going around here. Just gonna put a little green into it this time. Keep moving this around a little. It's okay. Grab a little green on the thing. It's too much of the olive green. So I'm just pulling in kind of this dust color with a hint of green to it. See the brush? So it's not too wet, but you can see that paint's workable. Just coming around here. Just putting, I'm being a little bit random with it. I don't want green everywhere. It's kind of a dusty green. And this is just kind of a tint, like a filter. We talk about filters and all that kind of stuff. So see how that is there? That's how it looks nice. Come in here and tap this out. Stippling. Yeah, so the flat upper surfaces of a turret like this is open, vast plains area of the Midwest. They're definitely the hardest to work with because, like Eric was mentioning, there's really nothing there. Yeah, all I do is panic. Yeah, Daniel, this is the triad. Cameron, thank you. I was trying to think of the word. Pete, what's up, buddy? Just got your windows. Yeah, we're cooler today though. Thank gosh. It's actually heating back up. That's 1 o'clock almost. But yeah, let's try. So you can just kind of see the hint of green. Yeah, knowing not to panic, and I think probably one of the most important things for most of you is going to be the troubleshooting when things go wrong, because in the beginning when you're, like, I can tell instantly the thinner amount because I'm experienced with it, but I know as you guys get into it, you're going to fumble a little bit, you know, and that's going to be the nature of how this goes. But that's also kind of the same with the enamel conversation too, is if you're using the pre-mix stuff, the pre-thinned or whatever you want to call them, out of the bottle, it's very easy to overdo it too by putting too much down. And how do you fix it? How do you pull off too much liquid? It's the same conversation, and it's just stay calm. Everybody should have a hairdryer. It's an important tool. It's probably more than value. Like if I didn't have a hairdryer right now, this would be really hard to show you guys. This would take forever. So there's the efficiency part of it, and to the speed conversation. Efficiency is being faster. Moving faster isn't being faster in terms of model building. Just being efficient with the process. If you have a mistake, stay calm, work small. The mistakes are small, they're easy to fix. That's kind of what I like to get across. Plus I have some time to work on all this stuff as this is all doing this thing. So it's actually look pretty good. So what you can see here, and I think I did some work earlier, and this is a little bit of a lie. I think my fingers oils have darkened this edge. That view right there, see how we're getting a bit of a dark towards the edge of the top plate? You're gonna want that a little bit because that's how the crew and your least amount of dust is gonna be over here. And then we can reignite the dust in that joint. So that's kind of, you know, it's super obvious to play this way, but in fact, let's just go ahead and do that real quick. Lighter dust color in this guy. Give a little more contrast. And if you recall in the last conversation, you play colors side by side to build contrast. So I've got a darker edge right here. By bordering up a lighter tone, we're gonna build contrast between these two. And with the glare, you can't see it right now, but hold on, we'll try it in a second. So I'm adding a little bit more pure oil, and I'm actually just trying to get a little bit more of an opaque up in there. Yeah, looks like I need to shut the blinds. The glare is starting. A cloudy day, the glare is worse. Kind of funny because it's kind of hard to remember like all the different various techniques and ideas I can show you guys. I can literally do anything I want. So I'm trying to like come up with an outline to show you guys stuff that kind of, you know, will help you guys and what you're looking for. So if you do have something specific, like a certain struggle with the bottle stuff with exact, yeah, we'll get in the conversation, and I don't want it to come off as me criticizing those products. I'm solution based. And I discovered the oil paints provide a better solution overall across 0 to 100 in terms of pure transparency to 100% opaque as a product. And the oil paints are just a superior step above an enamel. And when they pre-thin them, they're removing like the 10 to 20% and the 70 to 100%. So you're only able to work in a smaller window. And since they're so juicy, they're basically liquids, pure liquids almost. They're just kind of a, you know, mixed up liquid with a little pigment in them. It's going to be a little bit harder for you to get more advanced control system out of it. And I can't complain too much because I did win gold with those products. So it's not like you can't do it. And I know you can do it. I find this process easier, a little bit more enjoyable. There's no smell, by the way. By the way, there's no odors here. I don't smell anything. In fact, I think I smell what I'm smelling right now. What am I smelling right now? Yeah, whew, to me a thinner. X20, we got some pigment thinners lined up. But yeah. So that's one of the main takeaways with oils is their opacity ring and their controllability. Like I said, you control everything with the thinner versus it being pre-thinned at the factory. And now they do it for convenience, and I understand that. And then, like I said, we've done some good work with them. But I do believe oil paints provide you with the next level of full control. And there's a little bit of a learning curve, won't lie. All this is a learning curve, right? That's what I'm here for. Coach, help me out. That's what I'm here for, guys. And always feel free to follow up later, an email or something like that. You know, if there's other stuff you want to, we'll do some Patreon. Those of you who really want to get into this hardcore. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little bit of dust coming off the front lip of that. Actually, let's overdo this to give you a little bit more contrast. Actually, didn't look half bad though. But you can see, okay, this is a good comment. Again, this is my fault. I've been handling this shirt way too much. My finger oils in here are causing this. It's actually calming down a little bit. It's causing it to, there it is right there. You see that? I can see it on screen. You can see these little streaks a little bit. Even after I'm drying, those are staying a little bit like that. That's because there's oils from my Jimmy Jams all over the turret. When this is matte coated properly with a fresh coat of paint and everything, I'm not touching it, you won't have these kind of problems. So we should get to a point where I start fresh again. My bad. But that's so you know what it is. It's good to know what problems come from what. All right. So I'm just coming back in and kind of randomly putting a little more dust hotspots. That little edge, let's pretend it's going to catch a lot. The flame cut edge in there will grab some stuff. And remember, I'm working light to dark still. We haven't even gotten to the dark colors yet. We're just getting some kind of just general dust going. And this is the kind of dust, if you're aircraft modelers, train guide, trucks, construction, well, construction is a little bit more like tanks. When you don't need that really dry, gritty earth effects, the oils and even the enamels will give you a lot of that. I know Night Shift, I call him Night Shift. Sorry, Martin. Night Shift, Uncle Night Shift. He uses a lot of enamels in this type of similar idea. He's doing the same concept where you're controlling the liquids on the brush itself and getting good with that. Topic for a different day, Lufram says, products that offer enough value to substitute in place of OPR products. You got acrylics, enamels, not much else you can do. Pigments for dust, The enamels are going to be either enamel paint like a Humbrol or acrylics like the Life Color / Vallejo system. That's basically it. There is True Earth out of Italy. I have a couple of their thing. They're kind of one of those, they're just kind of doing their thing. I'm not really used their stuff. I have a couple of their products. I just haven't really tested them out too much, but there's not going to be a ton. But you can do a lot of this with, because it is all paint. All of this is paint, acrylic, enamel, lacquer, the whole thing. It's all paint. If you understand your paint systems, you could probably do 90% of this Wolfram with paint in whatever brand or chemical paint line you'd like to use. I've seen some guys do incredible stuff with just acrylic, like Vallejo, like dust washes and stuff like this. And I know they have their own weathering chemical line, and then so does Life Color now. So there's tons of other options, but there's only a handful in terms of like what you're going to use, and it's going to be paint based. But pigments are the probably the outlier on all that. But you should have all that stuff if you're doing. But if you're heavy aircraft, you're not going to use a ton of pigments. I just don't think it's applicable. It gets real gritty on the surface, and you can see that in the real jets and prop stuff. You won't see that kind of grit dirt, maybe on the tires and stuff. But I'd probably stick with more of a liquid or an airbrush effect for sure for aircraft. But yeah. There's not going to be anything really else out there unless you're going to art store and you're just searching for stuff, which I don't recommend too much unless you're just experimental. Yeah, see how that looks? That's because my finger oil's on. So let's reset this a little bit. And what I should have done, which I did last video, is reset the whole turret surface with clean thinner, because that cleans off all those finger oils. This is just a clean brush. A little bit of thinner on it, just resetting the surface a little bit so it's not so streaky when it dries. I should have done that when I started, apologize. But to the troubleshooting, all that kind of stuff, you can see how I'm not panicked or anything like that. Everything's fixable, everything's easy to control. Nothing's wet, nothing's running, nothing's puddling up. There's no messes anywhere else. So take that to heart, because that's, you know, the amount of stuff that you guys use on the brush is going to be the most important thing. Okay. Still a little bit on the gloss side. That's mostly just because of the sheen of the paint. Let me close the blind a little bit too, guys. Hold on one second. But you can see that's a really good working palette right there. That's how these get when you're into this and you're using these palettes. This guy right here that's how it's starting to look. That's a serious palette right there. On the dust colors, Hide is asking the basic oils. There's a list in the description, number one, and they do go clockwise from here, from the blue. They go around this way, and then they go into the middle. These dust colors over here on the right, lower part, I believe this is Buff. And most of these are 502 Abteilung brand. That's what I have mostly right now. I think there's Buff. Shit, they're all put away. What is this one? Is it Light Mud? No, that's Light Mud. That gray's Light Mud. Whatever, right? I know it's Buff and Sand. I'm forgetting. Hold on one second. Now you've thrown me off. Now I gotta go look. Hold on one sec. But yeah, the list is down in the description below. I put it in there for you guys. I forget kind of how they name these things out. So Buff is here. Jesus Christ, get out of the way. Okay, so Buff is this dude. Yellow band, doesn't even look the color. And that's that one right there on the palette. That's Buff. It's a really nice color though. Alright, this is really... It's always when you can't find anything. Faded gray, light mud. Hold on. Here's the Buff. And this is why I put the list down, so I don't have to do this all the time. But I will do it a couple times because I know you guys want to see this stuff. Why am I missing one tan? Where'd it go? Oh, that's you and faded Buff. Okay. Alright, my bad. Okay. Yeah, so this one here, that's light mud. That's this guy, light mud. And then this guy up here, slightly lighter tone, that's buff. That's this little Jimmy Jam. All right. And then this guy, which was throwing me off, because it's the one name that always catches me out, it's faded UN white. Sorry. So this color here on the edge is faded UN white. And then that gray is light mud. And you can see how I keep them grouped like that. Apologies for that mess, but keeps that. But it is in the description. So what you like to do is, you can see how I got a color flow, kind of my light tans, my dark rust colors, all that kind of stuff, and then the yellows, greens, blues, and then kind of the light gray shades are all kind of relatable over here. And I can mix really easily as we go. And that's the point of all that. But yeah, sorry for that little interruption, but yeah, that was me just fumbling around. It's always that, dude, where's that color? And then it's the one bottle. It's just like, what the fuck? Like, come on. It's the universe. So yeah. Yeah, so it's just kind of the glare is catching this a little bit. But you can see how we've got a nice little soft patch of dust in here. And we've got the dust over in here. That comes down here. We're using a little bit of that cast mark in there. So now we can probably start putting a little bit of dark colors onto that. Put a little more thinner into this guy. Didn't quite put enough thinner in that little thing. All right. Empty sprue, what's up, bud? Okay. Just cleaning one of the color brushes off real quick. I'm gonna reset my blending brush here. Get back into this. But one thing to remember, and this is one comment I have as a guy who constantly gets asked this stuff. Don't get hung up on the color name so much. Just get a bunch of each shade. Get a bunch of tans, get a bunch of browns, grow it over time. Don't be super concerned that what I'm using is what you have to use. Because remember, the more selection you have, you can fine tune it towards the project in your bench. Now this guy here is kind of a khaki, tan, greenish, brown, beige color. And so what I'm doing is just using colors that relate to that. But I know you guys all want to know what paint it is, what color it is. I understand that as dudes, we're obsessed with this stuff. Girls think they are, and we're really the ones that are obsessed with color. But just be kind of just in the idea, okay, I need like 3 or 4 tans, and whatever's being offered from whoever you're buying it from, just grab them. You're gonna use them, and it doesn't matter if I use Buff and you use another brand that's kind of relatable. As long as in that range, you need tans, you need greens, you need yellows, you need dark browns and blacks and that kind of stuff. So you'll build it up over time. It's just like all the other color stuff you buy. You're gonna need 3 or 4 shades to get through stuff. If you're doing historically accurate color schemes, which is a portion of you guys for sure, but there's a lot of you that don't. I don't get hyper wrapped up into that. If it looks like what I'm trying to represent, I'm usually pretty happy with it. Oftentimes that means I'm mixing colors. So it's better to have a selection of stuff so that you can do that. And there's times when I know in the books, the one that always I'm reminded of is my ISU 122. I think it was a life color green 002. I think it's UA 002 if I remember that correctly. It's a really nice 4BO color. Nobody tells you that it's 4BO color. So you have to kind of fumble around a little bit, and so just kind of play with that. Don't get super hung up. If you don't have the exact shade, you can still do all this too. You know, if you have a slightly darker brown, but you have some white, you can create yourself a nice little color. And this is gonna be you also at the bench experimenting, getting more experience, doing this in your quiet time. I always tell you guys to practice and test and all that kind of stuff, yada yada. Just go on and on. I'm sorry. It's so chatty today. I haven't eaten and all I had is coffee today. Okay, so that doesn't look half bad. There's a little bit of, and you're seeing, so this is again, this is what I did. I didn't set this surface. Oh, I got a little splatter there. I didn't reset the surface before we started. I'll have to make a note for that. So anytime, so I had a little, let's do that. So sometimes I'll have that happen, right? Where'd that go? Now it's hiding. You see that right there by the bolt? All right, let's take care of that. Just a little dab with thinner. Dab him out, dab it out. Yeah, it'll dry up. And so usually I'm pulling the hairdryer to the bench. I'm pulling off screen because it's just too much to fumble around with the hairdryer to get it all done in front of me. So just understand that that's why I'm touching this so much. I don't want you guys to think the worst of me. I mean, you probably do, but okay. Just putting a little bit of dust in these little depressions here. I'm assuming there's something bolted to the roof of the turret underneath from the inside. I'm going off camera a little bit, sorry. So what we're gonna do is, the thing is I don't need to do a ton more, to be honest. Oops. Get over there. Let's get some. Yeah, the glare from that oil, that'll evaporate over time too. So I'm just kissing this edge with the darker brown. Now it's technically kind of a chip, but I'm just kind of hitting that little sharp edge. And I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm just kind of kissing around, yeah. And this is what you saw me do in Tank Art 1 on that Panther, the Winter Panther in there. There's that chapter on the OPR. It's kind of that same. And this is just taking a clean, dry blending brush, just kind of soften them up a little bit. It actually looks a little stronger on camera because it's zoomed in. But when you pull back from the naked eye, so see that little thing right there? That's what you're looking for. So that's kind of that imparting that greasy hands, whatever the crew's doing. This is what it does to the paint. And it's just to repeat that. There's a little bit of dark oil on that brush there. And I use the edge of the bristles and I just run it along. Let me see if I can turn that so you can see that. See that right there? There you go. See, this is why I've tried so hard to get this camera work for you guys. This is what I've been trying to show for so long. You're just using the edge of that bristle and you're running along the edge of it. And you can do this on any detail. You can do it right over here. Some people call this microchipping. So that looks actually pretty strong in camera. It's not that strong in person. But we can soften that up a little bit. So this is just a clean blending brush. man, blending brush. This is why you guys are all here. This is the money shots right here. So what I'm doing, see how that bristle is kind of attacking that, but I'm not going over that edge. I'm not rubbing that edge back off. So I'm kind of tickling it's a little bit of a tickle in the back edge of that color. And that right there, and so because this is kind of a vertical plane, you know, it's got a downward slope to that, I'm gonna try to like pull some of that back up a little bit. So if you so the brush is kind of, go real slow here. The brush is kind of, I'm pulling it back a little bit. And there's kind of a little bit of a scuff. And when I go forward like that, it kind of softens it. See, and this will stay workable for a little while. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of tickling and pulling that oil back off that edge this way. So even though it looks like it's kind of a circular motion, it's kind of a jiggle back though. Because I don't want to go over it and push. I don't want to put the dark down here. I want it to stay up in here on top. Because you have to think about what's going on. And what I mean by that is, in its normal state, put some of this down. So this is in this kind of normal state. You have your top surface here, you have that sharp edge there. And so the soldiers and everybody else are gonna kind of roll off that edge of paint. That means that nook in there, that joint, it's never really gonna be touched. So whatever dust and everything is in there, you're just gonna let it stay in, let it stay in there. So get it to zoom back, there it goes, there. Sorry about that. Yeah, so there you can see that. So you're gonna want the dust to kind of stay in there, and then the darker edge is kind of, and that's that separation. When you get up close as a viewer, whatever, photographs, that's when it starts to really come together as a complete finished area. I feel like I redeemed myself there. I was struggling a little bit with the dust. Again, I should put a matte coat back over this whole turret because it's just a mess. So to do that again, let's repeat this process so you guys see it. So what I'm doing here, okay, it's a little bit blurry, but I'm loading the dark brown brush up, and this color here is this is going to be your darkest brown. It is the raw umber, and engine grease is another good color. It's not quite a pure black, and it's not a rusty tone. This is more of an exposed steel, and that obviously works great for armor. So I'm just getting some color in this brush with a little bit of thinner on it. I'm unloading on the paper towel. It's a little wet. So I unload a little bit more, it's a little bit drier. So again, there's a little bit of a lip here over the mantlet. And I'm using the edge of the bristle. And you can see that, that's almost too wet. That means there's too much paint transfer too fast. So I unload the brush again, and I'm not touching it. Let it stay there. It's no big deal. We'll clean it up in a sec. And you just, again, I'm just kissing that edge. And it's just the high spot of the curve. And if you have some existing chips over here, I'm still a little too much thinner on the brush, so let's put a little bit more paint to adjust that ratio. So it's a little bit more paint on the tip. It was kind of a little too thin. And I'm just kissing it with the side of the bristle. So it's just the tapping motion, and I'm trying not to get the whole thing, because you want some randomness, you want some of that to it. Yeah, hold on. Okay, I'll catch up here. Rick's got a good question in there. Okay, so let's go back to this. So this was our first guy over here. As you can see, they can sit on the surface fine. Okay, so that brush is almost too dry. So let's wet him a little bit, and then I'm gonna dry him really good. Okay, so that's the blending brush. That's a damp brush with kind of below being moist. Probably 90%. Let's dry him a little bit more. So I'm gonna put my finger in here. Yeah, see how there's almost no transfer? That's what you want. So that's a 90%, 95% dry brush, thinner brush. It's clean, no oils on it. This will let me clean up that a little bit. Remember my little saying is you can never have too small of a chip. I'm trying to get so I can see this. Yeah, the glare is a little much. So I just knocked that way down. Now, to the naked eye, you almost can barely see that. The camera's zooming in so much. Let's reset the zoom. There it goes. So I've created a little bit of a dark, worn edges along the top of that. And back over here to this guy. So I just leave him. So over here on the left, on the rangefinder. So I just darken that red up a little bit. And it's good as is. There's really not much I really need to be doing to it. And that's where you have to kind of control yourself, realizing that sometimes it looks fine as it is, and you don't need to do a whole lot more. Okay. So let's get on to the chat here, because I know you guys have been going here. There's a couple good questions here. Empty sprue, good or great advice? Yeah, it's with the color stuff. It's really about, it's good to know the colors everyone's using. That's all fine and dandy. Clean up a spot here on my desk. But don't get super hung up on it. I mean, definitely build your stuff over time. Don't feel like you have to buy it all at once, that whole thing. You know, have some light colors, some medium colors, some dark colors, and so on and so forth, and then just build it up over time. Yeah, exactly. He's saying look at the most used doors in your home. So most, at least in the US, they use in the non-bathroom stuff, they use a matte coat, at least in the apartments I live in. The door frames are brush painted, so they have a slightly different sheen to the matte door, but where you touch them with your hands, they get a little glossier and dirtier, and if it's a white base color, it turns a little discolored. That's kind of the same idea. So Rick asked a great question. So boy Rick Lawler here says, Mike, my experience is that when working with oils, that at that time the coverage and effects look good, but upon drying, the oils can become very transparent. Your thoughts and compensations. So what's happening is that you're putting down the color too thin. You've already thinned it too much, and it's probably coming from, if I remember my first time with this, is that when you come from the pre-thinned oils, enamels, when you come from the pre-thinned section of the product in the hobby, you're used to things looking a certain way, that it's kind of like we're making washes. That whole old school theory of, you know, oils are used, you're putting oils in the little thing and then you're adding thinner until you're making kind of a thin version of it. The difference with this, and when you use it this way, and this is probably where most of you, if you're struggling with this, is that understand that you have 100% paint on that palette. Then you're controlling with the thinner, and that difference there allows me to go from being very transparent, looking back at the top of the trigger for the dust area, and that transparency is what I want. But as you saw with the edge of the metal, I was painting with almost pure oil, and that black's gonna, that dark tone that's up here, all along those edges there, that's not gonna go transparent. That's not gonna fade to some sort of transparent color. It's gonna stay that way because it's almost pure paint. So your difference is in the application, in learning to shift gears from kind of an older teachings, if you will, and then kind of into trying to articulate it so those that don't speak good English can still understand this. Because Rick and I, we could probably get really deep into this because obviously Rick's a hyper experienced modeler. But that's kind of what's happening is the transition from the pre-thin into learning to work with pure paint is the big jump, because I know in my head, immediately if I'm working on something, how opaque, how transparent I'm going to require something to be to get the effect. Dust, obviously, I want more transparent. The chips and the stronger stuff, I'm going to want more opaque. So there's not much more to it than that. And it's just kind of the process you're seeing me do, even though I'm another day of fumbling around. When it works really good. And we saw that here where we're getting really nice dust, transparency through there. But you can see that opaque, that little streak right there of dust, that's not going to change because I'm painting that on. And that's probably what's happening is, if I'm guessing, Rick, if that's something you're fighting, is because you're pre-thinning it before you're applying it. And try to work within the brush itself. This is kind of, this little guy. Everything goes on to here versus being mixed up and then used. And that's kind of one of the big differences. And you're also not seeing me in that traditional sense of applying it and wiping it away, applying it and wiping away. I don't do that a lot. We did it kind of in this little area up here to kind of streak it intentionally, but I didn't wipe it all away so that, to try to leave a residual. So those soft dust streaks like that were kind of intentional. Another thing too, and this will go to the Zimmerit and the cast texture. Pretend that they're not there on the surface, because like if you saw this, I'm not trying to play with the cast texture on this. That's the direction of that streak. Excuse me, if that was Zimmerited, I wouldn't care, just run that straight through. Get a lot of questions on especially with Zimmerit. How do you treat Zimmerit? The basic answer to that, if it is a question for you guys, is just don't. Just treat it like it's not there, and then you'll have a better time with it. And so that means don't go through and try to apply a wash to the whole Zimmerit to get everything. It just makes it look like a mess. So hopefully that answered that question, Rick. And so Mateo Reich, hi all, what's up, bud? I have a question. I mainly model 1/72. My question is, how do you tackle the OPR for small models, or do you render smaller zones or bigger sub-assemblies? Okay, so you're basically answering your own question. And I think I've said this before a little bit. There's really not a lot of difference between the scales of 1/72, 48, 35th, and then 1/44 and 1/100 to the Gunpla community. So if you work in those 5 basic scales, it changes as you get bigger, but as you go smaller, it doesn't really do that. The brushes I use for 72nd are the same ones I use for 48 and 35th. So actually here, let me do this real quick. I could do this without messing up the book, but here, let's pull out Tank Arc 4. I've got it right here. Let's zoom out a little bit here. So my palette and my oil, these are taped to the best, so I can't move those yet. But let's, all right, here you go. Here's some notes. You guys see that? That's probably one of the most critical notes right there. As I look for the Panzer 4 and 72nd scale from Mateo here. Tank Art 3, which was printed overseas in India, was over 1 kilo. It was 2.21 pounds. It's a nightmare for shipping. Anytime you cross 1 kilo in international shipping, the price jumps hard. So Mateo, 1/72 Panzer 4, my friend. Everything that I was doing on there. So here, actually, you can see that's the same brush. That's this brush right here. That's your number 2 round. It's out of scale. But yeah, so you can see the size comparison. And really what it is, and just so everyone's on the brush conversation, I actually don't have many in the stash anymore because I just stopped using them. Let me grab it. I think I see one kind of what I'm looking for. Hold on, dudes. Don't go anywhere. All right. This is a 10-0. So a lot of you guys will probably start buying these like crazy small brushes. Okay. Let's see if it'll zoom in on the brush tips here. Okay. So on the left is a 10-0. Oh, I don't want to be licking that one. It's got oil on it. Let's just wipe it out. Okay, this is a good little sidebar. Good question, Mateo. Okay, you can see why I use the number 2 rounds. I hope that's really clear to you guys. There's no point in using these hyper small brushes anymore. Why? Because that bristle length cannot hold enough material for me to work effectively over a period of time. Now in a demo world, it's a little bit different, but when I'm working, when I've got that hat on, and I'm serious about this. Not smiling, fucking around anymore. Getting hardcore. That's not going to do it for me. In fact, you will be fighting that so much. These little tiny brushes. So you can see against my thumbnail, it's not very big. So the reason why I push these so hard, okay, just tighten that up. That's bad to do. But that holds its tip just as well as anything else. And a decent quality one, and these guys, again, I think the low Cornell, hold on here, is it still written here? Yeah. Okay, so it was, they've got it abbreviated, but that's Golden Taklon series. That was their product range of these black and red ones, which I believe are like a watercolor acrylic general use brush. But what I'm looking at, what you should be worried about when you're buying these similar ones in the art stores, usually where you get them. But I think the hobby brands start to sell a lot more brushes now too. You want that, actually here, hold on one second. I have a little, oh my God, try not to bump the camera. Okay, here we go. This will help a lot. Get the ruler. Okay, so here we go. All right, so get into focus. Okay, from the end of that, so there you go. A little over ½ an inch, about 5/8 of an inch, and about 15 millimeters, 1.5 centimeters. That's the bristle length you really want to focus with. And why? Because it holds enough thinner and enough paint. And that holds pretty steady across the hobby. But you'd be surprised. You can do all the various scales with this. And that's a really good question, because it's one of those that I think once you know this, you're fine. You guys are off and running. So for what we do, this is different than the figure painting. You don't need these 10 zeros, these triple aught, 5/0 brush, none of that stuff. A good grouping of this size bristle, see how sharp that tip on? I can do anything with that. 1/44 scale for Gunpla, 1/72 for armor, aircraft, etc., etc. So hopefully that answers you guys. That's a good question. Thank you. Christian asks, referring to Rick, I often see that the effects lighten over time, which soften the dark effects over light colors, but makes dust over dark colors even stronger, which is often a pain for me. Okay, so what you guys you're talking about the same hold on a second. I got some oil stuck somewhere. So Rick and Christian's comments, let's zoom back in a little bit. Let's get back up in here. The answer is the same for both of you guys, what you're talking about. It's typically going to be you're applying things conservatively in terms of the transparency level. You're probably working in, say, a 20 to 30 to 40% transparency with the oil. Now for dust, that's what you want. But for the stronger marks, and what you saw, and this is critical to all you guys listening, this is critical, and this applies to oils and enamels both, because you're gonna have to set yourself up for this. Okay, let's zoom in here and let's get this going. Okay. To answer this, because this is a really important question, a great question, Rick. Thank you, and Christian, follow up. That's what I want you guys to do, because I need these prompts to really get into this for you guys to just discuss as a coach, so your X's and O's are better for you. So looking at as kind of my pointer, transparent dust. And if you go back in the video, you saw how wet that was. So that means I was playing at about a 20%, 30% paint to thinner ratio, maybe even 10% realistically. As I went in transition to the dark color and the tone, there's no blending between the two, so there's no thinner on that. So I'm not muddying those up. And then that color there is probably like 80, 90% paint to thinner, maybe even 95% in some cases. And that's all these little dark edges right up in here. And so you can see, even in conversation, that's not going to change over time, you know, because we've got a model back there that was done this way and it looks the same. So really what it's going to be, oh, that little gloss, that drives me nuts. I want to flat coat this, and that's just because my finger oils are on that as a reminder. But yeah, but you're not seeing anything diffuse out because the thinner is really in control, and it's going to be that thinner application is the critical part to this, and that's really what I'm trying to get across to you guys. Because these are what I need to know is where you guys are at with this, what you're struggling with, so that I can answer these questions for you, because this is really good. Thank you, Pablo. He said the Panzer 4 is another level. That guy goes back. That's the first the Dragon Short Barrel Panzer 4. Great little kit. I think it was the first one over 20 bucks and everyone shit their pants. They're like, holy crap. Got expensive fast. DS styrene tracks on that one. Still holding up, I think. That one was that's in the whitewash chapter in Tank Art 4. Yeah, Pablo, thank you, bud. And then in scaleism over there in different scales. Yeah, so that's what, so Mark Schwegler asked, so how do you ensure in scale over the different scales? Great question, because that relates to what we're talking about. Part of it's reference. So you got to have good photos so that you can see the scale of the effects on the subject. And then you have to transfer that in the scale you're working in. And one of the things here was to go back to this magic brush all that, which is the most important. Get in focus. There it goes. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So I don't have any 72nd in front of me. If you guys had the Vallejo Rust book, there was a little what was that? A Flyhawk Panzer 1 that I did as kind of a burger Panzer. That's a nice little piece too. But okay, so let's get the turret out of the way here. So looking at this dude, go back out. So Mark Schwegler asked about how do you keep it all, and we'll get to you. I see you, bud. You replied, sweet. Okay, so you can see how I blow up these photos over here. All the effects, the techniques, so hairspray, and then you've got more hairspray, and then you've got the lacquer thinner blending out of the Tamiya paint, which is another little trick. I probably switched to mostly oils for this now. Mostly this is all done in the painting step, but you guys can't even see that. Zoom in. Here we go. I have to be my own cameraman. Sorry, guys. But yeah, you can almost see the dot matrix of the thing. So what you're doing, so you can see the tip of that brush. So Mark, to your question, how do you keep it in scale? You keep it in scale because you're the ones keeping it in scale. And kind of an obvious answer a little bit. But what you draw on the surface, let me get up in there, kind of almost how that was. That's about the right size of everything. So I'll be drawing, and you can see the tip against that white streak is the correct size. And that's about the size of it, because that's a little bit here, yeah. So it's a little bit out of scale, but more or less. So what you're trying to do is, and this relates, all these questions are actually related, they're intertwined. By using the brush, by using the pure paint, and then controlling it with the thinner versus pre-thin, so don't pre-mix anything or even use pre-mix, and that's why I try to get away from those conversations, is how you really kind of fine-tune this. So if you're in a different scale, you know, if this is to grab something else here, just so we're looking at something else. So if this is the engine half of a little 1/72 scale tank, so what I'm going to be coming in and doing, and you can see the size of the tip of that brush will give you the effect you need. So that's why they all relate. But then with the pure paint, and then controlling it with the thinner, and then unloading with the paper towel, I'm now able to control all those effects. It loses its effect over time. Okay, this is Mosin 2017. All of those effects that you're seeing on top of this Hetzer haven't faded at all because I'm basically painting. I know I make this comment occasionally. OPR in Essen is actually a second paint job. And hopefully maybe that resonates a little bit stronger. To kind of, this is a really important conversation. It's hard to underemphasize this a little bit. You guys are asking the right questions today. Thank you. I'm trying to articulate enough because there's a lot up in this and my noodle. Pure paint, pure thinner, the palette, and then the little thinner cup, and then your model. You have your base paint, which has already been chipped, markings, all that stuff's done. And I like to work from a matte. I find that a matte surface gives you the bite and the tooth to get kind of the grittier side of life. Satin and gloss is too slippery. And I actually fought that on the Gundam leg, and I was trying to do that streak last video because it's too smooth. And so you can see here, actually this is a great, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. You can see this is what I mean by matte and, okay, Same, actually, Mission Model. This is their late Dunkelgelb. This is their Jap Zero color. Japanese Zero color, sorry. You can see what the sheen does over here. This is what I don't touch a model, what happens. It stays matte. That's really what will happen. And that's because I refuse to touch it. This turret got manhandled so much, you can see the problems I have with it. And this will happen with the satin or gloss too. This is why you'll fight that. You'll have this whole thing. You see that sheen? That's from the thinner and the oils mixing with the shinier parts and all that kind of stuff in my finger oils. So I do recommend a matte. If you're not used to it, if you follow other guys that go satin and gloss first, you're gonna have to shift gears. The matte comes out of the paint. I don't use a clear coat for this kind of process, and this is blowing some pigments out of the way. This is any brand of paint. All the military stuff all sprays matte, as far as I know. There's some aircraft stuff that is designed for satin and semi. That's different. We're talking straight up military colors. They all spray matte. All the Tamiya stuff comes out Gunzi, all AK ammos. Everybody's raw paint all sprays out matte. That's the surface I'm working from. When we get into airbrushing, we'll talk about that because it all starts with that. If your airbrush coat sucks, you will fight this all the way through the end of the model. So you do have to learn to be a really good airbrusher. And so the quality of the paint job, that's just a straight up, there's a red primer, which is their red primer. There's a hairspray, and then there's a Dunkelgelb top coat. That's all the painting I did for that. It's all matte. I don't do anything else. And if you don't see me write about it, I don't do it. So a lot of times you guys will ask, and my answer will be, if you don't see me talk about it, or if you don't read it in the books, I don't do it. So that's kind of an important thing. And then from there, okay, everybody's understanding, okay. No, you're fine, Forrest. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Pablo says the Fly Hawk kits are little gem. I discovered those through my boy Roman Volchenko, or I don't know how you say your last name, dude. I always screwed up. Roman, you know who you are. You guys know who Roman is. Roman is a good buddy. I think he still lives in Norway, but he's one of my close Russian friends. We hang out a lot when we travel overseas in Europe and stuff, Roman and I. Roman got me hooked on those 70 seconds ago Fly Hawk kits. So that's kind of one of the things, is back to that conversation. It's kind of the matte base coat. With the OPR in particular, and the oils the way I use them, this palette's critical because it really gives you that pure paint option. And that's how you get that variation between the various transparent and opaque processes you're looking for. And then everything's controlled in between by how much thinner's down on the surface. So if you're fighting stuff, your first troubleshooting thing should be pull back on the thinner. Less is almost always going to be the answer. Rarely is it a case of more. You saw a few times in there where it wasn't coming off the brush the right way. I need to add more thinner, but mostly it's too much thin. So pull back. And then your blending brushes you're going to want on the drier side, because your thinner's in the oil when you apply it. You don't need to be adding more thinner. And that's probably what's happening. I'd say even to Rick and to Mark in the conversation, probably over time, your blending brushes might have had too much thinner on it. And it doesn't take much. So that's kind of hopefully gets those answers out to you guys. So let's do something else here. What I wanted to do was to show you guys. Okay, we'll do pigments here in a second. We'll get to pigments here. What are we, 1:30, about an hour and a half in? Okay, we're gonna go a little bit long today. Let's see here, let's go to this. Okay, so in Tank Art 4, one of the things I really wanted to show you guys. So this section right in here, zoom in a little bit on the book page here. This is the grill, 35th scale. Oops. Do you guys see what I just did? That's so funny. Hold on, let me zoom in on the screen. Fucking idiot. Okay, this little look right in here. So the first part of this is actually not hairspray chipping. This is a speckling of the rust specks in there, and then a hand-drawn scratch a little bit. That might have been hairspray, but there's a scratch in there, and then I went back with the oils to get this kind of, get this on screen there. Yeah. So let me show you how we do that, and then you can see the grease on the hub and everything like this. That's a nice little effect. It's very useful. I think I brought the Hetzer in for that. Yeah, let's do that. Let's switch it out. Actually, that's why I did that. Okay, so let's get this all on screen here. Let me make some adjustments, my friends. Thank you guys for hanging out today. Definitely hit the like and all that good stuff. Let's get this stuff going. Yeah, Gould, I pinch zoomed the page. That was awesome. That's a blooper right there. I'll be on the highlight reel later on ESPN. Yeah, Ronaldo pinch zoomed the paper page. Good job, bro. Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, that's the world we live in, right? We have to pinch zoom everything, and it's just, oh man. Anyway, I do appreciate this Epoch. It's Epoch Cam. If you guys ever want to try this, it'll turn your cell phone into a webcam, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, you see double. Yeah, I'll double tap the page too. Yeah, especially when you're trying to remember all the stuff going on, and yeah. I'm not too flustered yet, but anyway. So that little effect, let's do that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to speckle first, and speckling is a really, really useful little tool in the toolbox there. So let's get some rust on here. Let me zoom out so you can see my prep here. Okay, let's zoom back in a little bit. Yeah, I've got that all figured out. I just have to be my own cameraman. You guys are thankfully very patient with me. Okay. So we're going to set this up for, let me get my, hold on. I got a really old set of tweezers here. And you can see that's all from speckling. Just dries up on there. I clean it off occasionally. So what I do here, okay, well, I want really strong but small spots. Okay, let me zoom in on the paper towel a little bit so you guys can see that. Turn that so we get that on camera. Keep bumping everything. Okay, yeah. It zooms pretty good though. I will say it's working better. Okay. Okay, so let's look at the towel. So you can see those speckles coming up. They're pretty small. Okay, that's pretty good actually. So we can switch over to the, so what we're gonna do, it's real simple. Let's see if I can, actually let's do this. See if it'll stay there. There we go. Y'all see that? Nice. Okay. So you're gonna come in here, get about maybe 2 centimeters, about a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch away. So put a couple spots. Just do one little flick. Don't get crazy. I know some of you guys, whoops. Trying to balance that just right. There it goes. Bouncing on the commander side up there. So what I'm trying to do is just get a couple little like, okay. That's probably enough. I went a little bit much just to show you guys. So what we've done, okay, that's a little bit wet. Let's hit this with a hairdryer. We're gonna pull some of these down and streak some of these. Okay. So we've kind of kicked that back a little bit. And you can see why the hairdryer is so important. So now I've kind of, let's zoom in here. There we go. So just imagining rocks being tossed off the dry sprocket, whatever, that kind of effect, you know, the thing's gonna get chipped and marked up in there. So by speckling the marks in there versus say a hairspray chipping or versus a sponge chipping, you get a little bit more of a natural random effect. And that's exactly what I did on the back of that grill. So what I can do, come in here, zoom in a little bit tighter, hold on. There it goes. Okay. So that upper one's pretty big. So let's make him a pretty strong. Pull that down a little bit. My blending brush here. Start adding my finger grease to this stuff if I'm not careful. Hold on one second. Sliding around on my bench. Just because I can touch the hubs of the things here. Oh, the music stopped. Oh, there we go. See that was money. Okay, hold on 1 second here. One, we need some tunes, my friends. I know some of you don't want them, but I do like a little background. Okay. So that streak on the left, that one's pretty good. I went a little heavy on the one on the right, but that's okay. And because it's matte, you can see how much faster it dries and everything too. Just tightening that guy up a little bit. But that one there on the left, so you saw that in one brush stroke with just the blending brush, pulling that down, and I was pulling down from the bottom edge of that one thing. There's your streak, and you don't really need to touch it past that. So what we're gonna do is pretending these are all chips. And notice I'm not doing all of them. So one thing you don't have to do is they don't all have to bleed out. You just want that effect. Because the tracks are gonna come across, you're gonna have a road wheel up in there. You just wanna see stuff. You don't want it to be built in over time. And this would be a model too, by the way. I'm just showing you oops, I'm off camera. I'm just trying to show you the effect. Now typically on the grill project in the book here, that was a heavy urban vehicle, like it wasn't in the mud for a while. It was in the city. My reference photo showed it this way. It was really clean in terms of mud. So I'm able to show that effect. Now, obviously, if I pull pigments across this, I'm gonna cover some of this up. So you can't do it, but just to show you the technique, if you have the side of a truck, construction equipment, trains, all these things have these little, like it oxidizes, you get a little spot of rust. Boats, ships in particular, the Navy. This is a good way to put the chips down and then blend some of the rusted ones out, if that makes sense. So which brush do I have in this to clean? The problem with the rust, I will say, the rust oil paint looks like the bristle color, so sometimes you get confused. You'll grab the rust brush by accident. So this little guy is pretty helpful. So say, trying to hold everything and do 2 of 1. If you struggle with drawing a line with your brush, we'll get into the bridge method a little bit later, but one way to do that, to get around that, instead of drawing the line, like say you don't have a scratch in the paint, and say you want to add a scratch in the paint. Okay, let's back up a hair. So in the book here, zoom out a little bit real quick. Okay, so that little scratch right there. Okay. This guy right here. So say you want to add that, which is a nice little effect. So refocus camera. Okay, zoom back in. I'm getting good at this. Okay, that is. So what you do is you get the color on there. In this case, we'll use just the rust, keep it easy. And because I'm painting with paint, like this color's not gonna fade over time, and there's really no thinner on there. But what you do, kind of stipple the line. Instead of drawing it, like if you struggle with the line, like if you're not really good at that, keep it in the camera. So come in here and just dab the line out. Connect the dots. Yeah, you guys can see that. So instead of trying to draw that brush across the surface, which is easy to mess up, I understand that, just kind of tap that. See how I took the spots and then kind of tap to the side of each one of the spots with the tip of the brush. And that just kind of adds it's not a perfect line, but your eyeball makes it a line. You kind of fool in the eye a little bit. And then this is the thinner brush, and I'm kind of just dragging it out a little bit, soften it up. That's kind of cool though. That's a nice little thing right there. And that was pretty quick, other than me having to demo this. That actually goes really nice. Okay, so this will be what we call more of a wet application. And because of this little... So that's probably what most of you guys like to do. You're pretty juicy. If you guys can see how wet that is. Yeah, you see that gloss? There's a lot of thinner on there. See that right there? That's probably what you guys are used to when you do this kind of stuff. So you're gonna struggle a little bit. So I'm gonna soften the edge of that liquid or tide mark. The brush will gently soften that out. And then come in here, because this is an easy spot. Clean a little bit in between the bolts. Whoops. Pull it up a little bit. And this is why I like working on the matte surface so much more. You'll get the diffusion in the oil on the thinner. You won't fight it as much. So draw on the streak in there, and then come back in. I'm just kind of diffusing and fine tuning it out. And I try to keep the streak stronger at the source, and then pull this back a little bit. Yeah. But because this paint down here is nicely matte. Hey mom, you guys see that? My mom texted me. That's funny. My parents are retired, and man, I tell you, I don't know if that's good or bad. They text you all the time, like they discovered technology. So you can see really quickly, that's 2 colors, 2 brushes, some thinner, and I've got a little bit of like chipped rust area in there. Let's try that out a little bit. I'm real happy with myself. That came out pretty good. A bit of a rough start today. So that's starting to get a nice little visual effect there on both the leaky hub, which is pretty common to a lot of different vehicles. You know, the affected paint from being beat up just in general, but you don't want, how you describe this properly, but it's chipping, but it's not, you don't want kind of that edge chipping like your typical hairspray chipping. So I think that was kind of a nice little balance of how to do that kind of stuff. It's a nice effect. It's one of my favorite effects. Actually, let's put a little bit. So on the page adjacent to it, let's zoom back out real quick. Over here, right there, I'm speckling dust in there. Let's add a little bit of that. So a little bit of that. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Switch brushes. Sometimes it takes me a good hour to get in the groove. Started the stream too early. I do have to get used to working in the early part of the day. I'm a night guy, so this is. And you're seeing me work the palette a lot today because this palette's getting old, and so these oils are drying out. Typically, when this is a fresh palette, this goes a little bit faster. You can see it's a little bit resistant to getting on the bristles. There we go. You probably won't see this. Just want to take some out. My little eyeglasses in there. Not wet enough, actually. And I like to also advise too for you guys, tone on tone. It doesn't always have to be a dramatic shift in colors. One of the things is you're gonna build up your subtle layers over time. What you're also seeing for me is kind of just a general conversation application. If I'm working this model, like the top of the turret, the side of the hull here, there's probably additional processes I'm doing. This is just to show you the technique. I'd probably build up and build up and build up and build up probably 3, 4, even 5 times to get the depth to it at the final result. It's kind of one of those things. So really what I'm putting down is, okay, so you see right in here, this is what I'm talking about. That little look there is a nice little look. It kind of replicates like a roadside splatter where the dust is kicking up, and that happens to be the base color of the vehicle is the same similar color. So that's the kind of look you get, and that's a pretty nice little. And same thing with the rust ups over here. Speckle these in. Because this would be really hard to hand paint. The reason we do it with the speckling is to do this by hand, one, it's really, really slow. 2, your skill sets make a difference. Just flicking this, it's pretty easy. Most of you guys can do this. I stopped hand painting these kind of things a long time ago. For me to come in here and go, doot, 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 it's just too much, dude. It's too much. Nobody wants to deal with that. But this gives you the scale and the randomness factor. And if you're working in a smaller scale, pull the thinner off the brush more so that the spots going down are smaller. That's how you do that. So if you're going from 35th to 72nd, you're gonna be using less thinner, so there's less, diffusion coming out. So now I've got the thinner brush. Yeah, just coming in here, I'm just kind of pulling some of these down a little bit. Again, you can see why the matte surface works so well. And say I want to come in here. So what's naturally going to happen is that lower edge is going to collect more, because there's, see how that's diffusing? That's really nice right there. So next time when you rewatch this, you're gonna speed up to like an hour or 40 to get to the good shit. But no, we had some good talks earlier too. Let's try that real quick. Try not to touch this one. And this here we'll start to lock some of the effects in. So now it's a really nice little subtle little area of dust over there. So that would be the first layer. And I try to explain this to you guys. A lot of this stuff happens over the course of time. Like you're gonna get dust and dirty once, you're gonna get the rain specks over one part of the day. And then, a week later, a couple days later. So Gary, to the question was asked before, what brand of matte coat? I don't, it's the matte paints. It's all matte paint. Eric mentions Raphael brushes are a nice brush, similar to Mike's. Yeah, nice. I'm gonna try to find a customer friend, Omar, has found a similar brush to the Loa Cornell. Yeah, you guys are putting in the brush brands. These are great because I'm probably gonna have to do some research myself to go out there and find some more brushes. Mateo, Paul, I have a very same. AK brushes are not bad, but still very poor compared to Loa Cornell. So what's happened in that conversation is a lot of these are just what's the term? Blah. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Sears and Tamiya, they all do it. They're private label, so they're getting a supply. They're getting a brush supply and they're putting their logo on it, which is fine. Everybody does that. It's no big deal. So you have to kind of learn what brushes are better. I have some AK brushes. They weren't the best. They're a little bit on the low end, quality-wise. But it depends on the type of bristle, the type of, most of them are synthetic. Anything labeled as an actual sable brush, those are usually pretty good. And I don't use sable for this stuff. Tamiya makes brushes, Tamiya, however you want to say it. But yeah. Yeah, it depends. I think if toy lung brushes are probably different to the old Orange handle AK brushes. I don't have the new 502 brushes if they're newer. So Paul asks, I struggle to get a brush to have that sort of a point. Am I mistreating my brushes or just using a bad selection? Been able to get the Loa Cornell here. And yeah, so I do apologize. those of you new to this whole thing, there was a window of time where Dick Blick in the US would ship to the international pre-COVID. Unfortunately, those days are over. And also Lower Cornell has discontinued the Golden Tacklon series. I have an inclination to maybe contact them and see what I can do about that. Maybe I can do an RSP labeled Lower Cornell brush. That wouldn't be a bad idea. It takes money though. Yeah, so you're gonna have to, that's what I was trying to show earlier. Really focus on something similar to that focus. Trying to get it to autofocus. Yeah, similar to that. It's about a centimeter and a half, 5/8 of an inch, a little longer than half an inch. So yeah. Winsor Newton, yeah. Any of the art store brands, by the way, they'll probably be a little pricier. Hit them on the sales. I know at least in the US, the main stores like Michael's and Dick Blick and all those places, they'll run their sales quite often. That's when you hit them and buy them in bulk. Buy a dozen at a time. That's a good way to do that. I try to, if I'm doing a book project, I always have like at least 3 to 4 brand new ones I use. But these will last, these guys here will last 3 or 4 hardcore models if you take care of them. Because what I'll do when we're done is I'll clean these up, I'll put the tips back, and you'll see me do this with the mouth and stuff like that. Like here, you can get the dry one. So yeah, it's strong. And that just puts that tip back on that, put that away. And I stand them up in the brush stand over here, bristle up. Don't put them bristle down. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Eric. Yeah, there's a lot of branded stuff I'd like to do related to what we talk about here that if I can get into in the future. That's company growth. The book projects, what we got going on. If these printings go as they're going this year, which we think will be pretty good, by the end of this year into next year, we'll have some resources available to do some other stuff, which would be pretty cool. I'm just having to kind of back off some of my plans for now as we get through all this bullshit. We're almost there. I think some of you guys are finally starting to get your vaccines. Australia, dude, get your vaccines. What are you doing? You guys are just being church down there. But yeah, so once we get past a lot of this, I guess we're all tired of COVID, right? Are we all done? Are we ready? Okay, let's do some pigments. Let's do this. Let me get this oil stuff out of here. So this guy here, just to show you. So there's, oops, where's that? Yeah, double-sided tape on the back. So that palette's pretty much done. So if I was to do a new session, I'd make a new palette tomorrow, or whatever. But that palette there, when you're working, say if you're working like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that one palette will last you like the whole 3 days. Yeah, Andrew's asking base coat paint. Yeah, here we go with the paint conversation. It doesn't matter. I'm a watercolor guy. I'm a water-based paint guy. I no longer use lacquers, simply just for health reasons, more or less. And there's enough good paint brands out there that spray as well as a lacquer paint. And we'll get into it. Don't worry about it. Don't get all, it's a trigger for some of you. I know this. But we'll have the mission models conversation. We'll get into all that. It's one of the brands I do use quite a bit. And a reminder to many of you with the books, most of the heavy Tamiya paint shipping was thin with water. So let's do a little reminder on that one. Because there is the kind of the blur of the lacquer conversation. But any of the brands, Andrew, they all work really well. Vallejo, Life Color, AK Ammo, Mission Models. And there's a bunch. If you're into lacquers, it is Gunzi, Tamiya, and Gunpla dudes. You've got just a ton. But we're going to have a heart-to-heart on health and all that stuff pretty soon too. Because it's just not, you don't want to be doing that too much. Take it from a guy who sprayed 10 years worth of lacquer paints. You don't want to be spraying a lot of lacquers. Even with the booth and all that stuff, it's a mess. So here, let's, for some pigment work here. Pigments get dirty, won't lie. So this here is just, so you know, the side of this is a matte coat. It's just matte paint, not a matte coat. See, now you guys got me all messed up. Just matte paint. So for pigments in particular, I am adamant, you're gonna want matte. You're not gonna wanna put pigments over anything but a matte surface. And again, any of the hobby brands doing their matte or their clear varnish, whatever they want to call it, matte clear, flat clear, matte varnish, whatever, it's all the same. All of them work pretty well. Understand that most chemical manufacturers put talc in there. Talc is what diffuses it and diffuses the light. That's what gives it its matte quality. So a lot of them have talc, which is that white thing. If you're going to have a problem airbrushing, the thing I found I had the most problems with were the clear coats. It's probably the most problematic product we use in terms of if something goes wrong with a clear coat, it'll go wrong with a clear coat. So that's why I say that I start with a matte paint. I don't put on an extra clear coat. There's no real reason to it unless it's just a massively decal heavy project. But even then, most of the time, you guys know with the paint mask and spray mask, I spray a lot of markings now. It's a very rare occasion, and we'll have these conversations, I promise, especially with aircraft. I don't gloss coat a whole model to gloss coat a few decals. I'll probably do a spot varnish and a spot to cover the decal, because that's oftentimes where you guys are going with this. But for the sake of pigments, you know, the lower hull of a vehicle, construction truck, tank, there's no decals. Nobody cares. So matte paint, you're fine. Don't get too hung up on that. So to pigments, let's get into it. I messed my keyboard up. In Tank Art 4 in particular, we have a few pages on this guy. Sorry, let's back out a little bit. So this stuff here, this is the technique proficiency chapter, page 37. So doing this kind of work, applying the pigments here, dusting this up. And then coming in with this little airbrush here, which I'm set up for, thankfully. And then doing this, and then doing some speckling, and then setting that down. So let's do that first. Let's get a little bit of a dust coat down first, and then work with that. Hold on one second. There we go. Yeah, nice. Okay, so I'm gonna put my airbrush here. Here's my little Jimmy Jam airbrush. Okay, so I've got Tamiya thinner. So because we're using acrylic paint jobs, so I'm gonna put a little thinner in the airbrush for later. Let me crank the pressure down a little bit. So for this process, you're gonna want maybe like 5 PSI, maybe. Okay, so pigments. You guys have probably seen this conversation before, so light, medium, dark. So what I do is I put 4 or 5 light colors into a little container. Let's zoom back in a little bit. I put them in the little 35 ml film canister. That's just kind of a light shade. Just general light colors. In fact, I don't even look at the color names. I just grab the light shades I have. So that I make the light first, pour half of it in the medium. And then what I do is I add some darker tones, 3 or 4 darker tones to get kind of a medium version of the light. Then what I do is I take a little bit of the medium, put it in the dark, and then you put a bunch of darker tones. The light's not quite getting down in there. This one you want a little bit more dramatic, so you can put some actual darker browns in there. Just dark browns, whatever you got. This will all work. So what happens is, over the course of these, this will be your lighter dust. This will be your lighter dust shade, and then you'll layer the medium over that, and then you'll layer in certain areas the dark tones over that. And what that shows when it's dry is moisture content. So when the earth effects go down on the model, you've got the light dust layer here, and then around the details, the moisture is going to stay because it's going to stay wetter in the shadows and the corners and all that kind of stuff. It's all natural stuff. And so we'll put the lighter dust shade over the whole thing. We'll put the medium down around the details, and then we'll enhance that with the darker ones. And then what we'll do is we'll put some stains and stuff in that we can put in with the oils and stuff. So what I like to do is I have an acrylic base coat, and even when a lacquer acrylic base coat works too. Is the thinners that you use with it is, in this case, which is the one you always know, is this guy. You know how old this bottle is. X28 thinner. The reason I use the Tamiya thinner in particular is the ingredients in that cut through the pigments, so they bind them to the paint, and you get a pretty solid bind. You can move up to the pigment fixer, the actual product, if you need a really, really strong thingy. But here, so let's open something. We will make a mess, unfortunately. It's a little bit on the dirty side, and I've got computer stuff in front of me. Try not to ruin my keyboard today. You might. So to apply this, This is the same brush you see in all the books, guys. I've had this brush forever. This thing is beat. It's a number 4 round from somebody, somewhere, somehow. Real simple. What you want to try to do is here, you want your surface as horizontal as possible. Oops. See, that's why you got to be careful. Let me see, I got to put this guy. Okay. Because that's kind of a boat, it's kind of an angle to it. Get that flat. So that's pretty flat for me. Maybe a little different on camera. So let's get the light dust down first. What I showed you in the book there. So I get some pigments on that. Just want to see how much you want to do. Tap some out. So I put some down on the surface. Now let's stipple that. So at this point it's dried, and I'm actually trying not to breathe and blow on this either because it'll move around. But just, this is tapping it into the paint, and that bite in the mat will, okay, what I'm trying to get now, it's a little bit too much. We want that to spit. So I'm almost down to like 2 PSI, and it's just pure Tamiya thin in the airbrush. So you can't even see the airbrush. See that's about 6 inches, probably a little bit close. It's gonna blow some of it off. Okay, so you can't even see that too much. Let me zoom in a little bit more. So you just see the. Okay, so right in here, you just see the wet for a second, half a second. See how that's not even? See, that was kind of spitting. You don't want to like flood the surface. You just want to spit that thinner down. And that gives it that kind of gritty little fixed look. The dust shade's so close in color, you're not even seeing that. Let's actually go a little bit darker. Okay. You can see it gets pretty messy. Usually I do over this wide paper towel surface. So that loose stuff's gonna blow around a little bit, so you do have to kind of be careful because it will get everywhere a little bit. So I start the airbrush. The airbrush, you see how close it, that's probably a foot distance to the model. So that means there's little droplets of thinner hitting that surface. Oops. Everything is in my way. So that's the second application here. So I'm putting the medium back on a little bit, just kind of give it. So now I've got kind of a. See, I'll blow some of that off. I keep hitting this, and this is harder to do, I thought. Can you hear the compressor? Oh, so beautiful. We'll talk about the silent air compressor in a minute. Okay, so that's kind of a pigment dust application, and that's how it works, fundamentally just like that. And with the darker colors like a Panzer gray or olive drab, that light dust tone in that process, where I'm just tapping this out, I'll do this probably maybe as up to 6 or 7 times even to really get that depth of opacity. And you can see on screen, I can see that there. See how dull and dry and dusty that's starting to look? That's what you want, because that'll contrast with the paint and the other effects you got going on. So that's about 6 inches from the surface. So it's not even on camera for you to really see that. And you can hear that. I'm just spitting them. It's no big deal. I'm not hosing that down. That's what you don't want. So that's it. It's that simple. I talk about it in Tank Art 2, and then right there in the Tank Art 4 with the test sample. So that's the dust application. Now let's zoom out a little bit here, get a little bit more of the... Okay, so let's start putting some pigments on. Yeah, Eric, there's he said he uses a hair conditioner when he cleans my brushes. There's those tricks. I'm sure the internet's full of brush cleaning tips, and there's also products that reset your brushes too. If you have, especially the sable stuff, you're gonna want to keep good care of those and use those products. I don't get super hung on. I clean them up after I'm done, and then put them away nice and clean, and that usually keeps everything in. Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Yeah, you're gonna want. It's just like every other conversation with cars, woodworking. Tools are where you put your money. Kits are there. You know, I think there's a big conversation happening about collecting and hoarding and all that stuff. But what I learned is injected molded kits, they don't go anywhere. They're always available. Put your money in the tools if you're kind of getting into this. Okay, so to put the pigments down on the flat surface, you got a nice, look at that. Don't breathe, don't sneeze. Okay. So using my finger, I'm gonna tap the brush and kind of get those down on there. You have to do this a few times. And see how I'm already starting to get a nice little texture up in there? Just building up a layer. Don't worry about the suspension. That's gonna come off later. Or if you want it on there, that's fine. But I'm focusing in between the stuff. And I'm just kind of tapping that brush against my finger on there. And I'm building up a nice little layer. Maybe it's a mil thick. And this allows me to put on dry pigments really precise without touching that surface. Because the moment you start touching that and you start putting that bristle into that, these pigments will just get crushed. And it'll look like a modeler stuck his brush on a model, and that's what you don't want. So right now, I'm trying to speak up because I don't want my breath to even blow these. And then what I'll do is that was the light, so let's put a little bit in. The medium's pretty close in color. This is probably, I think I just didn't for the, let me pull that over here. We can talk about that in a sec. So the medium's gonna go a little bit down low. So see up in here, I keep it light and then putting the medium down low. And that's just a progression of the top to bottom. The moisture is going to go down. It's just basic gravity stuff. And it doesn't have to be super precise. So by mixing, 4 or 5 pigments, 3 or 4 more, we're up to like 7 different colors now. And so that, kind of variation, even though it doesn't look like a lot on screen, when this dries out and you see them on the final model and you're like a competitor and you're doing all this stuff, that amount of color variation makes a difference. If I just use one color, it really shows up as one color. And while sometimes that happens in reality, like if you're watching like stuff at Duxford, so these tanks in the museum come out and they drive through the dirt one day. Well, it's just that one patch of dirt, so it has like one color. You have to be careful with those references because you really want to capture, as the artist, a vehicle that's been in the field for weeks across multiple terrain. You want that look because that adds depth, and that's really what this does. By using the pigments in this manner, they're super efficient, number one. Those things, I still have the same original MIG pigments from MIG pigment days. Crazy. And then you adding in the depth of color by putting 4 or 5 colors in the light, adding 3 or 4 more to the mediums. Now you're like up to 7 or 8. And then the dark one's probably up to like 10 or 12 colors in total because you have some of the light, you have some of the medium, and you have new dark colors added to it. That's the depth really creates it on the model, the end result. And it does show. It does make it, especially up close. Okay, so then the dark one here. Kind of doing that around the sprocket a little bit. I'm just kind of a little sporadic. There you go, give it. So that's a nice little Jimmy rig right there. That's pretty good. Tap this out. These are actually. Let me put the lids on, and you can see. You can't see actually. Let me zoom out. Yeah, it gets kind of messy, and you're gonna make a mess here. Let me put the lids on real quick too. Hope you guys are hanging in there pretty good. We've been talking for a while. Rob, what's up, buddy, from the Netherlands? My Dutch friends. You guys are on it. How are you guys doing in the Worlds? I know Max is killing it in F1 right now. Finally, he's got the car, right? Good old Red Bull taking their time. Yeah, these streams will go for a couple hours. This one's a longer one today. The first half hour was a bit of a mess for me. I wasn't quite in the groove. It's a little bit harder to do this on the spot as I thought. Okay, but anyway, into pigments. Okay, so this little guy, let's zoom back in. And you can see I've got a towel on my hand is, I've got a towel across my lap. Keeps my clothes nice and clean. Okay. Get this guy out of the way too. Put a paper towel here. Let's see here, move this up a little bit, okay. Okay, you guys can see that. Okay, so looking at the eyedropper, boom. This is what we're gonna be doing. Boom. And see how I move it around to the next spot? So that's what we're gonna be doing. You're not so far away, but. So you just gently try to get one big fat drop out and then let it soak in there. Let me get back down here. This is really nice to see. And it will clear. Sometimes they'll do that. It's okay. Don't worry about that. Actually, that bent tip is pretty handy. And you really want to let this be a natural soak in. The initial hit will do kind of this stuff. Oh, Amazon ship, sweet. Those are my cable ties for my computer cables. Okay, so you can see up in here, see where it kind of cleaned it out a little bit? Don't sweat that. That's no big deal. And even the suspension pieces, I'll just hit that. So what I'm doing is, and if you notice, I'm not touching the pigments with the eyedropper or anything else. And you could do a similar process with the brush where you get the brush really wet with thinner and then try to drop the thinner off the brush. That works too. I found the eyedropper a little more controllable. One good trick, go under the fender, get the drop going, and then let it kiss the fender above it, and then it'll soak down capillary action. So now it's soaking in that upper edge. Yeah, you guys can see that really good. Nice. Yay, team. So I'm just trying to get a big fat drop low so it doesn't splash. See, that's okay when it does that too. Don't sweat that. So I'll use the suspension arms, touch the arms away from it, let the capillary action pull it in. So it's getting pretty juicy. See how it's starting to absorb? If you watch the liquid pulling into the dry, it's starting to absorb in other spots. And because it's a Tamiya thinner on an acrylic base coat, there's a little bit of a binding going on with the paint underneath, and it's strong enough for our work. A lot of the stuff you see here, like this guy, let me get that in there, like that guy there, that's 4 or 5 years old, been on the airplane 3 or 4 times, got 20,000 miles, maybe I should redeem those. That's all Tamiya thinner, so it's still holding up pretty good. If you need a really, really strong bond, what I tend to recommend if you're going heavy, juicy mud, like really thick mud, do a pigment fixer. Same process. Just swap in pigment fixer from AK or Emma, whoever's got it. Use that because it's got a varnish in it. It's got an enamel varnish in the liquid, I think, and that will glue it down to the base. And then you can do this process on top. It's kind of a layered, so the base one is really stuck down. The second one is kind of stuck to that one, and they'll stick pretty good as long as you don't drop the model or anything like that. It'll stay really in place. I think the guys that were at Horn of Hobbies really gained from seeing this live. This is hard to film for seminars when you guys are that way in front of me because you can't see over the hull of the tank. The fenders block the view. Okay, so that's enough thinner down. Empty that out. So what happens now? That actually turned out pretty good. So you see where we got those holes and spots? Let's take care of those right now before we dry it. So we want probably some light. Let's go light. Okay. So open the Le Light Pigment. Tour de France, super happy. In fact, I do my best work during Tour de France. I usually will put it on and work all day. Yeah, super glue on your clothes. Yeah, good luck. Max is the king. Yeah, I know you guys are stoked. I know it's going to be personally, as a fan, I'd like to see Mercedes come back a little bit because we really need a fight. I just don't want them to have the faster car and Max just runs off with this. I want to see a fight now. And I know Lewis does too. So it's, you know, it's one of those things I'm kind of itching for. So while this is still wet, but it's a great season, and going into the next season will be real interesting with the rule changes. New cards. Okay, so let's load up the light brush again. So this is wet. Boom. Come back in. And this is what I'm talking about. Don't worry about stuff. Because you're going to, inclination is probably to touch that with the brush and try to move it around. Fight every bone in your being not to touch that. The moment you touch that with something, it'll put a dent in the pigment. It'll just crush it. So just don't. See how those spots are all covered now? Let's zoom back in. Boom, look at that. So that liquid's still down there is absorbing the new dry pigments on top, and it's just patched that up. It's a quick patch, if you will. Okay, one little trick. Let me pull my oil palette dude back over here. While this is still wet. Hey, hold on here. Where's my thinner stuff? Can I go over here? And again, you can see this process is actually pretty simple when you've got multiple chem. So this is kind of my base rundown. I usually want to have the keyboard of the way because it's going to get messed up. Let's see here. Where's my Come on over here. Okay. So let's throw some stains down. Grab some engine grease, juice this up really good. Where's my little tweezers from some Speckling? I always do a quick just to see what's first. I want it real juicy. And I've done this before too. See, I've got the X20 here in my, yeah. As soon as you mess those up, you're screwed. Okay, that's good. You want a kind of a juicy speckle. Get some color in that. Gotta put my eyeballs back on so I can see. Getting old, fellas. 50 years old this year. Man, it's messed up. You're probably not even going to see some of the, but I'm speckling the dark oil paint grease stuff. You know, I'm getting a mess on my, there it goes. The reason I'm doing this now is because we're going to dry this with a hair dryer. Actually, we can get closer. Sorry, boys. I almost need like a moderator in my ear going, dude, zoom in. Okay. Over there. Shit. Yeah, the oil paint's so dry it's actually not on the brush. There you go. I'm gonna get real. We're getting, this is super juice. Hold on one second. We're almost there. We're almost there. Okay. There we go. Okay. And I actually get a little crazy with this, but see how close I get so that I don't get up too much up here. You'll get some over, you get a little bit, it's okay. It actually adds to the love that's going on. I'm not gonna worry about that too much right now. Okay, because what happens is when you put the oil thinner with it, to me a thinner on there, they kind of fight each other. It's oil and water a little bit. Yeah, let's get this out of the way a little bit. Okay, so now gotta dry this. So let me do this real quick. Okay, I'm gonna do this off camera. You guys still with me? You guys still there? Yeah, don't mix up your thinner and drinking water. 52 here, Mike. Turning 50 killed me. Yeah, no, I'm one of the younger ones. Okay. So over the towel in my lap, I'm drying this down. I'll get this about halfway dry and then we'll put this back up on the bench. This is where you have to have a hair dryer. You can't do this. I mean, you'll wait hours. And I'll often do the side of a tank in halves. Like what you saw, that's how much I did. I'll do that first, get that down, and then I'll do the front part of the hull as well. Jildy asked, do you have any plans to release a single model book for any? Yeah, Star Wars is coming. Yep. So that's kind of what SM's for. Oops. Probably next year for the first Star Wars stuff. The Bandai kits, mostly the Bandai kits. Yeah, I didn't do too bad. This is a bit of a mess, but we'll get cleaned up here in a sec and we'll wrap it up. This is starting to dry pretty good, so you guys can get at least a decent idea. Okay, put this back on camera. Yeah, so you can see right there, just on screen, that's about half dry. So you see under the fender there, see this, all this stuff under the fender? That's all from the speckling. It's gold, money. It just kind of, there's some natural happy accidents that happen. So those are all little oil stains when I was flicking that, the oil brush to get kind of the stains in this. But as it's starting to dry, see how it's still pretty dark? It's gonna actually lighten up to this color right here, most of it. There's actually a lot of pigments on the desk. Let me put this over here for a second. I'm gonna clean up for, let me get some cleanup going a little bit, guys. Hold on one second, because I'm gonna make a big mess if I'm not careful. And then you're gonna see me ruin something, then I'm gonna be pissed and be blaming you, all your fault. Yeah, okay, so with Bandai in particular, Bandai just opened a second factory. Bandai's overloaded with production, including their Gunpla and all the IP stuff that they do in intellectual property rights. They own or have copyrights to a bunch of stuff. There's so much demand with captured audience, all of us people. Their side of the world is huge in the hobby. It's the biggest by far. They're actually outstripping production, and Bandai even opened a second factory. So that in all the conversation of what you're seeing there is because they're running out of capacity to maintain the flow, and then the container stuff going with the sea freight is just a mess, as we've started to hear, and that's affecting everything. Those that are complaining about it, like if you hear other companies talk about sea freight container, it's real. It's not good. It's not a good situation for a lot of us, and it's hurting small companies like ours pretty bad. Ours, mine, sometimes. Let's see here, just trying to clean up some of this. So I made a bit of a mess, not too bad. But let's flip the paper towel the other way. Okay, there we go. It's always two sides, my friends. Two sides to everything, right? So I like these little sponges to prop my models up on. Okay, that's not too bad. Yeah, it's made it kind of a cleaned up, a little bit of a mess up here. Not too bad. Alrighty, so let me do a little bit more drying, see if we can get this further along. Hold on one second. Actually went pretty fast. Usually this takes 15-20 minutes. What are we doing on time? 2:25? Okay, 2.5 hours? You guys are hanging in there. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Okay, so let's zoom back in. All right, let's get that in. Yeah, so that's actually looking pretty good. Wait for the camera to stop shaking. We'll work on this more on the next session too, and we'll get into weathering into the pigments, juicing up all the suspension parts, getting all that really good stuff. So we'll get into, let's zoom back out here a little bit. So this is the actual Stug 4. I still have a few of my models, not many though. I do sell a lot of my stuff. Get rid of them. They just take up space. we'll have a conversation about improving your work and not fall in love with what you do and all that kind of stuff. Hold on a sec here. Got to get creative with my okay, I'm off camera. Hold on. Get open here. You can see I'm touching the frills more than the model, so don't sweat that. I know you guys are like freaking out. You're like, ah! Don't worry about it. Light over here a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna blow out a little bit. Apologies for that. Okay. So what you can see in here. So all this kind of stuff up in here. All that's all pigment. That's the same process. See the dark splatters on the Hetzer? Same process. Now, what I would do to get a more controlled opaque look is I would do another round of this and then really start to focus on where I put my darks, where I put my mediums, and where I put my lights. Get a little bit more control to get more, this is a book production level, competition level. I'm focused. I'm not demoing kind of crap. So that's what you're going to see where you get this move further along, and we'll do this on the next sessions where we'll keep going. We'll do some more work with this, but that's the first foray into pigment, getting that first couple layers down, and then you've got kind of this stuff over here is really good too, but we'll get into how we get all these various little, but you can see the rich, oh, is that not even, there it goes, sorry. You can see the richness in tones that you get through all that, and you can start to see how it's happening here. Again, that goes back to how you set up the pigments from the start, and by putting them in the little things, grouping them all together. It's a huge thing. That change, when I kind of figured that out, that changed pigments for me, really did, because it's so hard to get this. If you try to paint this or try to do this individually, it's brutal. It takes a long, long time. This actually went pretty fast. I would say if I'm doing my modeling, like if we're doing this and I can probably do the whole lower part of a tank, 35th scale, not too much matter the size, Tiger or Hetzer, doesn't matter. Probably over the course of a weekend. And then I would get into tracks, which segue, we'll do tracks in the future, but we'll get to tracks too. But that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys, is that this is the process to get you from this. When you start it out, you'll get into this level, and then we'll get into all that. And I have the wheels for the Hetzer, we'll put those on. We'll keep building this one up a little bit as a test model and kind of demo this out, but I wanted to show you guys that a little bit. So this guy, yeah. One of my favorites. The Stug B is like my favorite tank overall. I like the short barrel Stug. It's like if I had to own one as like a collector, that's what I would buy. That or a Stewart. I'd hustle around in a Stewart all day. It's like a little sports car. I hope that kind of is helpful for you guys. Fossil watch sponges. Yeah. Any of these packing sponges, I just collect them. If I see a nice one, this one's a little bit more porous. And then this guy here, I forget where I got this one came out of. This was like camera packaging. But see, that's a little bit tighter. Now you could use these, you start cutting them up. We start doing sponge chipping and some other stuff. We did that with the oil paint. We didn't get to Gundam today. I went long on the other stuff, but we'll correct that mistake. Hopefully there were some Gundam guys in there. But that is kind of, yeah, we'll get into wheels, Eric, for sure. I have a farm tractor, another test model, die-cast 43rd scale. We'll use that for wheels and get into that. It's sitting ready to go. I haven't quite got to that part yet. As you can see in 2.5 hours, pull this guy back out, you cover a lot of territory. It's tough to kind of, I'm getting my legs under me a little bit with all this, with the live streaming and kind of talking about stuff. So you can see that glossy sheen, fingerprint oil, causing problems. That's why you should never touch these before you paint. Anyway, let's see, certain angles. So yeah, you can see that dark edge up there in front of the matlet as you rotate around. And see how the shades change as you rotate the view? That'll be the same for the viewer when they're walking around your model. They'll see that transition of color for you. See how as we look across the turret, towards the edge right here, that darker patch, outside of the finger oil problem facing here, I'll reset that for you guys next time. That color shift's pretty nice, but you can see how it, so coming off of this panel here, into the dust in here, and then rolling over here. So you don't need to do a lot of work. And so that could be like, say that could be like 1 session or 2 sessions. So now what I would do is I rotate into here and I bring all this over here. But because I have this work over here, I have a really good guide for myself. And what happens is, and I know there's a couple buddies in last time were talking about this with me too, is you really start to get in the groove, and that first section is almost becomes one of the more important things you'll do, because it, as you, like I said before, you kind of almost repaint the whole model. But it's the same thing for this guy. Actually, I showed 2 different techniques. I think this one here was the traditional method of putting the wash in there and then blending that out, and then over here was kind of the more me painting than it. And I like kind of how I was getting some looks over here. But what I'm doing is I've got a panel here I use, and I work up here, and as I move around the model, those previous works kind of locks me in for the future works, and it's a really nice way to go. Hey Mike, what's up, bud? I hope you're on patrol today. I hope you're doing good, being safe. My boy, my police officer in Indiana. You guys are doing good stuff. Forrest, you're welcome. I'm glad the Pigment. Yeah, Pigment's actually, I was kind of nervous. It's so messy. Just, I thought I'd have it everywhere. And it is kind of everywhere. You can't really see it, but keyboard's got to clean up. But yeah, that turned out pretty solid. Yeah, so see how it's starting to dry now? Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Yeah, we'll keep playing with that in the next couple of live streams. All right, any other questions for today? We're gonna wrap it up here. I'm hungry as a mofo. Gotta eat. Yeah, so I'll break this down. I'll do a post on this, and I'll put timestamps for all this stuff so you can skip through all the bullshit in the beginning, and then you can get right to the heart of this. But yeah, hopefully you can really kind of... and I like one-on-one with you guys. You guys, some great questions today. Rick, if you're back out there, Lawler, I do appreciate it. Your experience and then kind of insights created a really good question today, and a follow-up there we did. And I hope the answers were viable. Yeah, Christian's talking about a Bandai Revell reboxing. Try to stick to Bandai molds or fine molds or Bandai for Star Wars. The Revell stuff's really made for the kids. You can definitely do a lot of good stuff with it. Don't get me wrong. You can go to town on any model. We all know that. But if you're looking for a good out of the box, Bandai's got its stuff. Carlos in Nova Scotia. Who's Mark Bannerman? I don't know if he's around anymore. He was my big Nova Scotia contact. I don't know what the weather is for you guys, but I'm sure it's warm. If it's warm in Nova Scotia, you know planet Earth is screwed. Yeah, you're welcome, guys. Thank you, guys. Hope this is resonating. I know I'm a little distracted half the time, but as I focus more on some of this stuff, that's not half bad. That color in there, you see that kind of. I want you guys to kind of capture that a little bit, because that's going to happen off of Sherman. That's going to happen off of a Panther or any kind of modern subject, an Abrams, even the Abrams with the Kark paint. That stuff is so dead matte that when it starts to polish out, that color pops and goes darker, especially the greener colors. You get a really nice color shift. You can see a little bit here on the T34. I didn't get to this model today, but this is an older one. But you really, those kind of, you can see the sheen, you can see the darker tone. That happens from the crew, that happens from the boots, all that kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff you're really getting into. So you guys can really start putting this on your stuff. And even aircraft on the side of the cockpits, you can see all along the, I found a great picture the other day of a Spit pilot going in the cockpit of a Spitfire. And you can just see where his lay rubs against the side of the fuselage, how that starts to buff that out, and that'll darken that paint in certain, as you rotate through. And I think they polished some of the Thunderbolts and some of like that, where they were wiping the engine grease that was leaking over the top, and you'll get that same look. It happens on all that stuff. So any of the matte paints that polish out, all blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I could go on for days. But this is Stream 3. Thank you all very much. I hope you have a great day, rest of your day and rest of your week. I'll put up another notice for the next one coming, maybe Sunday? I don't know. I'm still getting my schedule down. But Wednesday, Sunday seems to be okay. At least once a week, for sure. So if I went a little long today, I hope that's okay with you guys. Baghead996, real positive light. Yeah, thank you, brother. Loving your vibe, what we need at the moment. Thanks, mate, from the UK. All my UK friends. I miss Folkestone. I miss those days of Euro. You have no idea. I remember being let's real quick recap. Let's see, first year was probably '07. Flew in from LA by myself, landed through the train station, is it King's Landing? King's Crossing? God, I'm rusty on my subways. Lugging my shit down, and I landed at like 9 a.m. on a Thursday. Huge mistake. London subway in the morning, American with his luggage, going down south to Dover on the rail. You guys know, if you know, you know. It was a little bit of an experience. I learned to take the Euro high rail after that. You're welcome, Rob. Dutch fans. Yeah, we've got part 2 of Austria this Sunday. We're going to get some practice Friday and Saturday, F1. So I hope for some weather. A little rain. We need a wet race. And to the guys in the Worlds, hope your country's doing what you want. I think France got bumped out by Swiss. And then Tour de France. If you didn't see Mark Cav yesterday, dude, if you didn't see the finish yesterday, and I haven't watched today's, I think it was a time trial today, Cavendish pulled off one of the most impressive victories in modern sports era for what he went through to get to where he is, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, if you're a bike fan, cyclist, whatever, I know my boys out there that are like that. We'll see you guys soon. Take care. Everybody have a great rest of your day. On the internet, be nice to everybody, be nice to your mom, all that fun stuff. Take care. Thank you so much.